Matt Cox, returning for round 3.
What's going on?
We got a little co-host here with us today, just, special for you. Your former, I guess you'd say like your fellow employee over at the FBI. Is that how we'd put it by the time you were in prison?
We worked together for many years.
Oh, I actually met an FBI agent, retired FBI agent that interviewed the FBI agent that was on my case. Her name is Candace Calderon, and she had interviewed her, and she's going to try and set up an interview with Candace and myself.
Oh,
it will never happen. Candace despises me. But I was like, oh yeah, set it up. Yeah, I'll do it. Because I know Candace won't do it. So.
Candace has some serious sound bites from Matt Cox episode 2 from last year. There were some good ones you had in there for sure.
Yeah, she's just
All right, water under the bridge. Anyway, so for people who are just tuning in, obviously we have who I call the G-Fote sitting across from me, greatest fraud of all time, Matt Cox. If you don't believe me, look up his Wikipedia page. It's all there. And riding shotgun, your favorite special agent, Jim DiOrio, in the building. Welcome,
Let's go.
sir.
Woo woo. Yeah,
let's go.
In the house.
So the way we did this, a lot of people have been begging for this third episode since the last one we did. I think we put out last August 2022. And you're like, Becky, we are now social workers.
No, we now work for the Salvation Army. I made a badge. You know, it's really funny. I made a badge using the picture on my social security, using the picture on my wanted poster. I used that picture on my on my Salvation Army badge. The badge said that I was a statistical surveyor.
Begging. Dude, I get questions all the time like, when's Matt Cox coming back? When's Matt Cox coming back? And so the first time I brought you in was in like March or April of 2022. And you were there. You had to get a flight out at night. And so we had to cut it off at like 3.5 hours. And the whole time you were rushing, but you're like, we're never going to get through this story, dude.
You ask all. You're very inquisitive.
I am inquisitive. You're a very interesting guy. So it worked out perfectly where we left off when you went on the run from the FBI, and then the second time you're here,
I'd been caught, right?
The second time was your whole time on the run. We didn't even get to prison, or we ended it with the cops literally arresting you.
She goes, look, I think I f***ed up. So what do you mean you f***ed up? What does that mean? So I'm getting out of the car at this point. I'm walking towards my house. And 3, maybe 4 black SUVs pull up and lock up their brakes, and a bunch of guys jump out in black, in vests, and start screaming, get on the ground, get on the ground. My first thought was, I'm being robbed again. This has got to stop. This is really a bad neighborhood.
Money's up there.
I'm not even in my house. So, and then I see it says Secret Service on the front of it. There are things in white.
Oh, man.
And they're pointing guns, and they put me on the ground. They handcuffed me, and they set me up, and they brushed me off, and they said, they hold up a piece of paper, and the guy goes, oh, I don't think it's him. He goes, no, it's him. It's him. He goes, no, man, look at him. He goes, no, look at his eyes. It's him. It's him. He goes, oh, it's him. He goes, it is you, Mr. Cox, right? You are Matthew Cox, right? And I went, yeah, it's me. Yeah. Unlike Becky, I wasn't gangster. I didn't hold out 45 minutes to an hour.
So for people who haven't heard Matt's story before, this sets up perfectly because you absolutely can watch these out of order. It's kind of like The Godfather 3, except the third one's going to be great. And you can hear about his prison life today, which is a wild story. I know some of that. There's a lot of that I don't know because I purposely haven't really asked you about some of that. But the other two are easily the funniest episodes we've ever done. You are very gifted. So anyway, now that we set the deck, we leave off. You were in, I believe, Nashville, and who was the chick you were living with at the time?
Amanda Gardner.
Right. Okay. And then it was Amanda's friend who tipped off the cops, right?
Yeah, that was yes, Tina. Oh no, Trina. Trina.
Oh, her name was Trina. That hurts. That's a tough one. Trina's such a stripper name. It's a real,
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she's a nice person.
Okay.
Who told the police. She did the right thing, and she contacted the Secret Service and negotiated a small reward, an embarrassingly small reward to turn me in.
Okay. Well, at the time, you were the most wanted fraudster in America. You had been on the run for a few years. and you get caught, and this is not as simple as case happens, you go to prison. You were charged with like an insane number of indictments, no? What was the setup there?
Well, I mean, I was indicted like in four different jurisdictions, but then they consolidated them all to just Atlanta.
Why just Atlanta?
Because, they can't, not that they can't, but it's overkill to indict you in Florida and then charge you and sentence you there and then move you to Atlanta. And, what ends up happening is you'd end up with 500 years. So instead they said, does one prosecutor want to just consolidate all of these charges, prosecute them in one place? It's fraud.
Right.
So,
what's up, guys? I'm coming at you live from the old studio, by the way. I'm not sure if this looks familiar. Looks a lot different now. But if you have not subscribed, please do that. We had 45% of you guys subscribed in the month of November watching. That was amazing. I really want to keep that up because that helps us in the algorithm on YouTube more than you know. And also keep sharing those episodes around on social media, whether it be on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit. It's all huge. It's all a big help. I appreciate every one of you, and I hope you guys have a great holiday season. Thank you, and let's get back to the episode.
So they did that. Not that they don't always, I would love to say, oh, they typically do that. They typically do, but there are many occasions when the guy's just such a bad person that maybe he's, I know guys that they have just these horrific crimes all over the United States and they don't separate them. So that you get 50 years here, 120 here, 60 here, 90 here. And next thing you know, this guy's got 500 years. They do it just to make sure you can fight. Even if you could win them all, it'd take you 30 years to win them all.
Right. That's what they did to Harvey Weinstein, I think, right? Like they had his case in New York and then another in L.A.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure what happened with Weinstein, but I'm saying, yeah, they'll. So, but I got lucky.
Why'd you get lucky?
Because they just did the one they consolidated. And
but why did they do this for you? That's what I want to know.
No, they did. I mean, typically that's what they do. Typically that's what. Just because why would you have 4 different prosecutors working on essentially the same? Yeah,
it's cleaner.
Like let's wrap this up. And my prosecutor definitely wanted she wanted the media attention. She loved media attention. Like she's
a prosecutor that loves media attention.
Yeah, never saw an opportunity. Never missed an opportunity to talk in front of the camera.
And so you come back. Where were they holding you when you got arrested?
Nashville. Like I went from Nashville. I went from Nashville to, to like I don't know. They moved me from Nashville, held me somewhere, some state next to Nashville. I don't know. There's a lot. I was educated in Florida. I'm not sure what. I don't think I could even name all the states. One of those square states around Nashville. Gotcha. All right. And so, like Kentucky, I think they held me in Kentucky for like a week or two. And I just remember when they first put me in this cell in Kentucky, like there's like 20, 25 guys there, right? So you walk in there and they had me cuffed and they uncuffed me and I turn around.
Were you shackled too? Did you have your feet shackled?
Yeah, I was shackled. Like back then they put like they used to have the black box. Like I'm like a white collar criminal. They've got this box and I'm like Hannibal Lecter. And it's like, I mean, I filled out some paperwork.
We love doing that stuff.
Yeah, it's just fun. It hurt. I mean, it was hurtful. So, but they uncuffed me in this room. And I remember, by the time they uncuff you and I turn around and look and there's like 20, 25 guys standing there staring at me. Oh. And I mean, I just remember thinking, my first thought was, this is when they rape you. And I thought, one of the guys points at the TV and goes, yo, man, you was just on TV. And I was like, what? You like ripped off banks or insurance companies or something, right? And I was like, I'm looking, I'm like, what? Like it was just surreal. But yeah, that's when I remember I went to go use the phone. I don't know why this is funny to me, but keep in mind, this, I was raised upper middle class. I'm dealing with banking.
Right.
Even when I'm building houses, I'm dealing with general contractors, right? So I'm not dealing with the guy who can't speak English or that sort of thing. I'm dealing with a guy who's got probably a college degree. So what ends up happening is I go to use the phone and I can't figure out how to use the phone. Like it's not like you just punch in the number, and nobody you don't know how to do it. And this guy comes up, this black guy comes up to me and he goes, John got peeps? And I went, excuse me? John got peeps. Like, I'm sorry? Like, I'm terrified. I'm like, excuse me? He's like, John got peeps, man, you peeps. And I'm like, I'm looking around and I realize that I'm sitting there thinking like, you need someone to kind of, to explain what he's saying. He's speaking English. Like, you're in trouble. And this white guy comes over. He's got horns tattooed on his head. So I'm like, you're no better. I'm just as terrified of you. Look at your ass. You're insane. And he walks up and he's like, your people, man. I go, my people? And he goes, your family. Are you trying to call your family? He goes, I got this. And the black guy's like, gotcha. Like walks off. And he's like, you're trying to call your people? I said, yeah. And he explains it to me. And I remember thinking, boy, you are unprepared for this experience. Like,
how much were you facing at this time? Like double life?
No. It's 154 years. So, so I feel like that's not life, although I guess it is probably life. I don't ever think of it as life, but my PSI, my PSI said 32 years to life when they finally got done. Which I remember my lawyer was like, she's like, 32 years to life. She's like, that's ridiculous. You can't even get life for fraud. And I just
watch me.
I just never made me feel good. I never walked away from a meeting with her and felt like, yeah, this is good. Positive.
Were you, so you had been on the run, like we were saying, for such a long time. Like, was there any feeling of relief, or were you just completely just terrified at what's going on?
Just terrified. Like, how everybody's like, oh, I just felt like a weight was all taken off my shoulder. Like, I don't know what your experience was, but I felt horrible. This was a bad day. It was a bad day. And I think I told you this the last time. Like, I remember the whole week leading up to me getting arrested, Casino Royale was coming out, right? And it was the new James Bond. What's his name? Daniel Craig. So, and I was thinking like, wow, what a great James Bond he was going to be. And I thought this is going to be great. And I remember the whole week, Amanda was like, hey, listen, we're going to that festival, on Saturday. I was like, yeah, I know. But on Saturday, no, I was like, on Friday, we're going to Casino Royale. She's like, yeah, I know. And then something else happened. She'd go, hey, we're going to do whatever on Sunday. I go, yeah, that's fine. But on Friday, she's, I know, Casino Royale. And so I remember when I got arrested and they patted me down, they threw me on the ground and pulled me up and put the handcuffs on me and brushed me off. And I'm standing there and they were like, you're Matt Cox, right? And I was like, right, yeah. And I remember my first thought was, I'm not going to be able to see Casino Royale. I'm not going to make that. I know it. Like, I'm not even going to ask this guy. But yeah, the Secret Service arrested me. I got locked up, and I was there maybe a week, and then they moved me to somewhere else, like Mississippi for a few days, and then they moved me to, it was only maybe a week, and then they moved me to, I remember this. We're not doing 3.5 hours, okay? But listen, there was a guy.
You.
I remember there was a guy there, and he said, guy who'd been in jail before, and I remember he kept getting called to mail every day, getting 2 or 3 letters a day, and I was like, who's writing you every day? And he's like, oh, my ex-girlfriend. I broke up with her. I'm like, why? He's like, well, we were going to get married, but I'm going to do 3 years. I got arrested. He goes, I've been down before. I did 5 years before. Got out. Was driving somebody around who was selling drugs. I got roped into it. He said, I got 3 years. So I broke up with her. I'm like, what? And I only know because he was opening up the envelopes and he would look at the pictures and be like, and throw them away. He was constantly just tearing up the letters and throwing away, tearing up the pictures and throwing them away. Because you don't want other guys to get your pictures, obviously. Right. So, and I was like, why'd you break up with her? And he's like, yeah, because it's just going to make my time harder. And I go, what do you mean? He said, okay, so I watched guys the first time. He goes, the guys that have the hardest time are the people that have a family on the outside, people that have a wife and kids. He was like, they hang tight. Some of them will hang tight for a few months, maybe 6 months. They'll come visit you. They'll put money on your books. He goes, but it's a one-sided relationship, bro. He goes, there's nothing you can do for these people. He goes, all you can do is call up and say, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? Send me some books. I need money on my books. He was like, it's a total, you're just, you're just a taker and a taker. And the worst thing is, he's like, my girlfriend's hot, bro. She's gorgeous. And he would show me pictures. He'd go, look, he's like, I don't want to be that guy on the phone who's going, where were you last night? Why didn't you answer the phone? What are you doing? He's like, I mean, who am I? He's like, I got myself arrested. I'm in jail. He said, my best bet is to cut her loose. I said, I'm cutting you loose. And in 3 years, if you are available, we will date again. We will hook back up. I want you to do whatever you want to do. Forget about me.
Wow.
He goes, and she's not accepting that. He goes, but she will. I go, well, maybe she won't. And he goes, listen, bro. He said, she's going to get lonely. He goes, 90 days from now, 6 months from now, he goes, she'll find somebody else. He goes, she's a good girl. It's not her fault. Like, he really had a great attitude. Like, it was depressing, but he knew. He said, my time will be so much harder if I'm worrying about what she's doing. He goes, and I'll destroy that relationship while I'm in prison. He said, by the time I get out, she'll hate my guts, even if she sticks by me. He said, the only people that keep their families the entire time, 2 people. And listen, when he said it, I just remember thinking, you're nuts. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
He said, if you are a multi-millionaire, and your wife is 100% dependent on you, he said, guess what? She's going to be there the whole time. He said, or she's not American. He goes, American women will not do it. He said, now if she's from South America, she's going to be with you for 5 or 10 years. She'll do it. He said, I don't know if they're going to be off, messing around. I don't know what they're going to do. He was about to tell you what, they're going to be there for visit. They're going to send you money. They're going to write you. They're going to order you books. They're going to do everything they can for you. He said, nobody else. And he said, and she's a good girl. And he said, but she's an American girl, and I can't do anything for her. In 6 months, she's gone.
Whoa.
That's interesting. I was thinking about when you were talking, a big thing for us was obviously always wanting to get cooperation. And so one of the things that I would do is just look and say, hey, you're facing 7 years. It sounds like nothing, but that's 7 Christmases. That's 7 New Year's, 7 Thanksgivings, 7 Easters, 7 of your kids' birthdays. That would strike home. Because what you said is
horrific.
Once you kind of look at it and say, you know what, I got to just separate and get through this, and I don't have to talk to anybody, including law enforcement or anybody else. But when you start making it real, that first Thanksgiving, okay, whatever, that second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, it starts to get hard. That's what we would do. So if you're looking at, we're talking for opposite ends. Obviously, we're good friends, and we're talking from opposite ends, but that's a big part of it. So what you say there is the only way really to get through it. Not just with the girlfriend, but the family.
If I'm looking at 7 years, I'm talking to law enforcement. I get that down to 2 years.
How fast did you have that attitude? Immediately?
Immediately. Bro,
about yourself or about other people, though? That's what.
No, I mean, look, I knew by the time I got moved, like I went through Oklahoma City. Have you ever been to Oklahoma?
I have been, yeah.
Listen, these people could teach. They could teach the Nazi regime something, bro.
What?
I'm telling you right now, they have it down. We're talking about you're walking in rows of 4. Well, is it 1, 2? Yeah, rows of 4, and they can strip your handcuffs off, and they're so fat. They are so efficient at moving these guys from the air. The airplane pulls up. It connects to the whatever that arm thing is that connects. You get out, you march in with your little hand, with all shackled and handcuffed. They strip you down. The marshals are so fast at it. They give you your bag lunch, your assignment, where you're going, where your housing is, where you're. I mean, they see medical, you see everything. You're in your cell within 20 or 30 minutes. It's insane.
Wow.
They're just that efficient. They're doing it all day long. But yeah, so
you were flying on Con Air then, right?
Yeah.
What's that like?
I mean, it's not like the movie, but it's not nice.
I'm glad it's not like the movie. The plane's coming down.
It's not. I mean, the marshals are, they are. They're not gentle, caring souls.
They're not. That's what they do all day. Is just.
Do you talk with them at all?
I mean, it's. I mean, no, I didn't. But the few people I saw that made the mistake of saying something like they had to go to the bathroom, like. You want to talk about they could care less. And they're perfect at it. They're great at being able to make you think you're about to go to the bathroom. It's like, as soon as you get on the plane, you're going to go. It's fine. No, but I got to go now. As soon as you get on the plane, you get up there, sit down. As soon as you sit down and we get taken off and we're in the air, you'll go to the bathroom. And they just boom, boom. But before you know it, you're not going to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. There's 300 guys on this plane or 200 guys.
Oh, you had that many on there.
You're peeing in your pants. These guys are just pissing in their pants.
I didn't realize they usually move that much.
They do, yeah.
Yeah. And those planes are, they're not in great shape.
Look at this duct tape on the fucking wing.
It's not as bad as Con Air, but it's and here's the thing too. You
It's
don't
not as bad
realize
as Spirit, but it's,
Right.
it's close.
But you know what's funny when
He
you
flew in on Spirits.
when you I
Well,
did not,
that's
it
what we
did
put them
not.
on. That's what we put them on.
Chances are you've been here before. There's absolute chaos in the markets, whether it be oil or stocks, and just when you thought it was safe and interest rates were rising, new threats have come out of nowhere. Tensions are boiling from Asia to Europe. 2 wars are happening simultaneously with no end in sight, and an election year beckons in 2024. Adaptation is the key to safeguarding your wealth. Have you thought about hedging your portfolio with gold? You should. It's not speculation, but insurance. And right now, you need some insurance. Noble Gold Investments have been protecting investors from disaster for years with precious metals. So if you're worried, it might be time to take a fresh look at gold and silver. Gold is a proven safe haven shield for your portfolio and a volatility balance against uncertainty. Noble Gold Investments is offering a free 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin along with its IRAs this month. If you open your Noble Gold Investments IRA or 401k rollover, you can claim your free coin today. To protect your wealth and retirement money, open up a gold IRA today by going to www.noblegoldinvestments.com/Julian Dorey or by calling 877-646-5347. Once again, that's noblegoldinvestments.com/Julian Dorey. Remember, crisis brews, portfolios waver, gold insulates. So secure yourself against the threats at Noble Gold Investments.
So when you take off from a commercial flight, right? Like it's not bad. Like the takeoff, like these guys aren't taking off like that. Like they're having fun. Like they're just bang, and they're boom. They pull that stick up, and you're whoa. You're like, oh my god, I had no idea that a fucking commercial plane could go straight up like this. I mean, it's like whoa, and the whole time it's straight up. And then when they land, it's a hard landing. Like it's much. You don't realize how gentle a commercial air flight is until you get on Con Air.
Yeah, well, I hope I never find out. Personally,
No,
I don't want to witness that. But you're in the middle, and you're in the middle of this whole thing, and you're just trying to talk right away to move down years. But you were running your whole ring. So
like
what were you looking to talk on?
Well, I mean, eventually I ended up going to they moved me back to Atlanta, and they consolidated all my cases.
Right.
And the problem was this. The problem was, by the time the FBI shows up and the Secret Service show up, and of course, when I meet with my public defender, who's like a super nice person, right? She's like really nice, did as good a job as she could have. Like I didn't help her out. You know what I'm saying? It's not like she had like, well, we can go to trial. Like she can't go to trial. I'm guilty. I'm so guilty. I mean, there's no way for me to even pretend that I'm not guilty, if that makes sense. Yep. So what ends up happening is I talk to her and she says, look, you're done. Like, that's it. You've got, you're looking at a tremendous amount of time. And they're saying, first they said I had stolen like $26 or $27 million. And I was like, that's not true. Well, I mean, first they said that, anyway, it was like 26 million. I said, that's not true. We argued. We get it down a little bit to like 19 million. And then it eventually gets down to like 15 million. And so by the time the FBI, and there's nothing I can do. She's like, your only strategy is you take essentially 30 years and change. Because bank fraud, the maximum bank fraud sentence you can get if they consolidate them all would be 30 years. But I also had aggravated identity theft, which is an extra 2 years. So I had 32 years to life.
And that could be per event, right? Like the aggravated, but they don't do that.
But I pled guilty.
Right. So they could tack that on at 2 years at a pop.
They could stack them.
Yeah.
So if I have 50 identity thefts at 2 years, that could be 100 years just for identity theft.
That's
mandatory.
So consecutive, yeah.
Right, which is one of the reasons you want to say, let's consolidate this. So
you're wheeling and dealing.
All right, so we consolidate it. And
when did Candace visit you?
So Candace I'd already talked to her on the phone several times. You know that.
Oh, we know that.
Yeah. So she came to see me after the Secret Service came to see me first. So my lawyer's advice was, tell them, everything you can, cooperate, hope for the best, like that was it. And it's not like I used to joke about it, like she didn't help me at all, like what was she gonna do?
Yeah, there's no case there.
Yeah, there's nothing to do. There's no wiggle room. So it's like, yeah, you could go to trial and get yourself 100 years, or you can cooperate and hope for the best. And that's what I did. So I met with the Secret Service, because I would love to say for the people out there that are watching this that I was a gangster, but I'm not a gangster, like that wasn't like, look at me. Like I can't go to prison.
Yeah, what was the word?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm adorable.
I'm adorable.
He goes, what are you going to do? I said, oh, nothing. I'm leaving. I said, I can't go to prison. Look
So
at me.
immediately you were like, I'm on the run.
Yeah. I mean, look at me, bro. I'm adorable. Can't go to prison.
Had you had any of the plastic surgery yet or anything?
No, I haven't been on the run yet.
Oh, shit. So you did that to change your appearance while you were on the run.
Of course. I mean, I know what you're thinking. It's hard to improve this. But
I'm adorable. I cannot go to prison. So I had to weigh the respect of my fellow scumbag, scumbag criminals, their respect versus cooperation. And it was a very, very quick decision on my part. It was like, yeah, I mean, I know you guys are going to be disappointed in me, but if I'm not in prison with you, I don't have to be concerned about that.
Well, you're going to be in there for a while with him. That's the thing.
I was, but the least amount of time as possible was the goal. So I meet with the Secret Service, meet with them. That was an interesting conversation because, they're still trying to put it together, right? And I told you, I think did I tell you this last time?
No, we left off at when the sirens were blaring and they were saying Matt Cox, get on the ground.
So the guy says I think his name was Bronskowski or something. It was some really long like Russian name or something. Anyway, he's so funny because when I was talking, so we meet, and the first thing he does is he sits down and he says, "Listen, before we get started, I got the U.S. attorney, 2 Secret Service agents, my lawyer, and Jim knows because he's sat in many of these, and me. And the first thing he says is, he said, we need to fix something real quick. He said, go ahead and he said, so that you don't get yourself an obstruction charge. He said, we know you still have some money out there, so let's get that off the table right away before we even start. He said, what other money do you have out there? Because we already know you have money. We've already found additional money. And I'm like...
Now, were you rolling in mostly cash in places at this point?
I mean, I had cash, right? Like we had cash. They had found some cash. But keep in mind, Amanda went immediately and went to our safety deposit box, her safety deposit box, and took the safety deposit box, took all the cash out, and then immediately, this is also a girl that was going to wait for me, went immediately with about 6 or 7 passports and went straight to the Secret Service agents and field office and said, oh my gosh, you can't believe what I just found in my safety deposit box. I had no idea these were in here. And I thought, wow, like
great woman you got there.
I didn't even get the 6 months. But once again, she's a good citizen. She did the right thing. So she, and I joke about that, but I really do believe that. Like she was in a bad spot. She had a son. She had, she has no, that was the right thing to do.
Have you ever talked to her since then?
Well, no, I haven't talked to her, but I've had producers who have spoken with her. And I traded a couple of text messages. And basically she's remarried. She's remarried. She has another kid. And she met a decent human being, and she married that guy. That's nuts. And so she was like, I'd sent her an email when I was in the halfway house and emailed her, not an email, what am I saying? Messaged her, Facebook, right?
Oh, you got right out. You were looking to hit again.
Yeah, no, stop. So I messaged her, hey, what's going on? How are you? But, told her, look, boom, just curious to know how you're doing. And then she didn't answer for like, let's say maybe even 6 months to a year. And one day I got an email from her. I couldn't believe it. I mean, God damn it, a message, instant message from her. Am I not supposed to cuss?
No, you're fucking good, dude.
This
is New Jersey, bro. Come on.
So she says to me in that, she said, listen, she said, I'm so sorry. I've really, really kind of battled over this and thought about it and want to talk to you. And I'm interested in talking to you. And I would love to catch up. And, I have questions. I know you have questions. And she said, but out of respect for my husband, I need to ask him first and talk to him about this and see how he feels. And I will let you know. And then maybe a couple days later, she came back. She said, look, I'm sorry. I spoke with him and he just doesn't want me talking to you. And I have to respect him. I hope you understand that. And I said, I totally understand that. And I get it. And, and then some producers have reached out to her to talk to her a few times on some of the little kind of documentary episodes that I've done.
Yeah.
And they've reached out to her and she's spoken with them. And she's like, I don't want to be interviewed. And she's like, I hope he's doing well. And please tell Matt that, I hope he's doing okay. And, whatever, blah, 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 back and forth a little bit. And that's it. But we've never spoken. So no, the answer is no. But she's doing good. And, that's great. Yeah. So anyway, I get out. I talk to the Secret Service agent. So the Secret Service agent says, you're hiding money. We know you're hiding money. So I'm in the meeting with them. The what do they call it?
Proffer?
That sounds right.
Proffer. Yeah, you're right. I guess
probably proffer agreement.
Yeah.
So unless you lied during that particular set of circumstances, then you would be okay for the day.
Right.
There's nothing that they could use unless you lied.
If only it was
during
a day.
That day. Right. I'm sure it was multiple days.
3 days.
Yep.
And then the FBI was another 2 or 3 days. But so I talked to them. So they said, they were like, we know you've hidden money. And I was like, no, I didn't hide any money.
Me? No.
And my lawyer's leans in. She's like, do we need to talk? I'm like, no. And I'm like, I gave you. I started naming off all the bank accounts because I told my lawyer that these are the bank accounts. Like, keep in mind, when they raided the house, they found the document. They found all these.
So you didn't have like a trash bag of cash sitting somewhere in a backyard?
No,
that
I did.
knew?
But remember how I had a home invasion? And they stole all the money. I had a home invasion beforehand. They took like $100 and something, $200,000 in cash.
Was that the same one that Bob Menendez just had? The same home?
Oh yeah,
He had a
tough
home invasion.
Tough. That was interesting. Bob Menendez is the senator in Jersey. They've been trying to nail for like 2 decades, and I think
He'll
finally
get off again.
him.
He'll get off again.
You think so?
Positive.
Oh, and he had the gold bars and everything. Right?
Yes. Correct.
Yeah. That guy's like Teflon, bro. They can never fucking get him. That would have been you.
He's a troll.
Doing that raid though. If you were still in, right?
Yeah, we did the first one.
How much are you allowed to say if you investigated him?
He's a little troll. Let's just leave it at that.
It's not illegal to have
troll.
gold bars. It's not illegal. That's not illegal.
You're an asshole, Senator Menendez.
We'll take that as a yes.
It's not illegal to have
dirty,
cash.
Filthy, dirty criminal. But I'm over it.
You're in the proper meeting though.
A long night.
Look at that.
So what ends up happening is the Secret Service agent was like, we know you have money. I said, no, I don't. I said, you've already gotten it. Like, I told my lawyer where all the bank accounts were. Amanda had given them a bunch of bank accounts. They'd taken whatever it was, $500,000, $1 million. They had all these properties that they were seizing and getting and selling. And I was like, you've got everything. And the guy goes, look, we know you're lying. We know you have at least, I'm going to say 200,000. Might have been 100, but let's say 200. So he goes, we know you have $200,000 in a bank account right now. And I was just like, what are you talking about? And he said, we know you've got $200,000 in the name of Walter Holcomb. The guy's name was Walter, which was a homeless guy. Oh. Well, we know you have $200,000 in the name of Walter Holcomb. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he slaps down a couple of bank statements that say that there's like $198,000 in this bank account. And it was called Southern Exchange Bank of Clarksville. And I was just like, wow. And he said, yeah, he said, we've already subpoenaed the records. He goes, we're going to get the records. We're going to get the money. He's like, what are you doing? You're going to end up with an obstruction charge on top of everything else. And I went, did you go to the website? And he goes, yeah, I went to the website. And I went, okay. I said, what'd you think? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, he goes, it's a banking website. I go, yeah, but it was good, right? I mean, yeah. And he goes, what do you mean? I went, it's convincing, right? And he looked at me and he goes, no. And I go, yeah, bro. I go, it's all an illusion.
It's not real.
I said, there's no, like, I'd made a fake bank, banking website. Like, I was like, you could go through it, had different pages. You could do all kinds of stuff.
Where was he getting the money number then?
Well, because all it was just a fake bank statements that I had. So he So
Gotcha.
what had happened, and he said, no, he said, I went to like the banking registry.
No, you didn't.
He did.
No way.
There was a Southern Exchange Bank of Clarksville. There was a Southern Exchange Bank which had been bought out by SunTrust Bank and closed.
Oh, yeah.
Mine was Southern Exchange Bank of Clarksville. And so when he looked it up, he saw Southern Exchange Bank. It was a real registered bank. It still was registered. And he just didn't realize that. So it was a real bank. Like to him, this number is correct. There's a website. It's correct. I have bank statements. You've got money in the bank. And I just subpoenaed the bank. He subpoenaed their main address, which was in Tampa, Florida. But nothing there. And I said to him, I said, who'd you subpoena? And he goes, I said, you didn't get anything. He said, well, no, we sent it off like a week ago. We're still waiting. I promise you're not getting anything.
I'm not responding.
Yeah. And I
you
said,
used to have a bunch of cell phones?
that's what I said. Who did you, because he said, we've left messages. I go, who did you leave messages with? And he said, on the voice, there was a voicemail. And I went, I haven't paid that thing in like 4 months. And he turned around and he called it. This is, like he picked up, boop, 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 and it went, that, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I haven't paid it.
It's a humbling moment for that Secret Service agent.
Oh, yeah. It was, and I remember too, he had told
Probably
me.
never asked another question that day, right?
No, he did.
He did.
He was actually, here's the thing, he was funny. Like, he was super funny.
Did they ever laugh at stuff like
Yeah,
this?
they laughed all the time. Like, the secret,
funny.
here's the thing about the Secret Service. The Secret Service, and I'm going to enjoy saying this, was the most professional group of law enforcement that I dealt with. The most thuggish, unprofessional group of law enforcement I dealt with at that time.
Marshals?
No.
DEA.
So
Clarksville
Anyway.
PD.
Tough day for the FBI.
anyway, yeah, they
Well,
were.
listen, of course they were professional. They wouldn't throw themselves in front of Biden.
Yeah, they also wanted. They also, keep in mind too, like really wanted me to go to jail for a long time. But anyway, so I was like, it's all fake and this and that. And I remember the U.S. attorney was like, well, why did you even have those bank statements? And I was like, bank statements? She's like, why'd you have the phone number? Why'd you do this? I was like, banks are great for everything. They're great for employment. They're great for, for your down payment. They're great for reserves. They're great for verification of rent, mortgage. And she was like, all right. So, so we talked and, I just explained to them, everything that happened from when I went off on the run, when I went to Atlanta, what I did in Atlanta. And that's when they kind of explained. Remember the first video we did where I explained that it was the second video where I explained that one time I'd gone in to a closing and the attorney stopped in the middle of the closing and like picked up the documents and said, hold on a second, and went in the back and my Secret Service's most wanted posted. Right. So like that's when they told me that. They said, do you remember this closing where the guy actually left? He stopped the closing and I was like, yeah. He said, well, here's why. And they told me why. They told me everything. Like we went to the bank. Remember the check you cashed for $29,000 in the bank? They gave you a hard time. I was like, right. And she said, we actually went there and talked to that. Like, so they explained everything.
Oh, wow. They're really giving you the
They were all
download.
over it. They were all over it. Like they genuinely, look. And the difference is too, as opposed to the FBI, for them, for the Secret Service, this was a big deal, right? Like for the FBI, they're tracking down, violent criminals. But for the Secret Service, this is a big deal. This falls right within their purview.
Yes.
And for the FBI, like to them, it's like, I'm looking for a serial banker, or we're looking for, terrorists, or we're looking for, we're tracking down these types of things as opposed to, so they weren't as adamant as the Secret Service was.
I've never understood where the Secret Service ties in, because the way we all think of it the first time is the people with the mics who protect the politicians, but
Very unique,
That's tiny part of it.
niche investigative portion. So this being one of them.
Right.
Card fraud and bank fraud to an extent. And then more so recently cyber.
did they step on, like, did you guys step on each other's toes sometimes?
It was a deconfliction. So that's the important thing, is just talking to people and saying, what's your portion? What are you going to do? Who's going to take the lead? Does that always happen? No. It can lead to a little bit of, swinging dick syndrome. Yeah, going at each other. And U.S. attorneys, they usually do a good job of it, but you do have agents that are just like, meh, F you. You know, I'm going to do what I'm doing anyway, so I don't care.
Gotcha.
Which was why after I spoke with the Secret Service for 3 days and I explained everything, like, this is what I did. I went straight here. Here's how did you do this? I rented this. How'd you get these names? I got this. How'd you do this? So I just laid everything out. This is what I did.
Were they taking? They were taking notes.
Oh yeah, they're taking notes.
So,
How long was this meeting?
3 days.
Yeah, but each day, like total.
They can't do it very long. Like maybe 6 hours, 7. Like it's not like they're going 10 hours. Like they have to have the marshals
day?
move
18,
you. Yeah.
6 hours a day, though.
17, 18 hours worth of.
Trying to get at.
And I think what Matt's going to tell us, I don't want to jump in, but so both sets of these agencies are taking notes. So Secret Service is taking one set of notes, providing it to the same United States Attorney or Assistant United States Attorney. The Bureau is taking their own set of notes. Now think about the problems that can have, right? Because we don't record anything. We don't record anything.
Right.
So we're writing down. So now at this point, we've got to come back and say who's the lead because your notes don't reflect what he actually said. You're maybe throwing opinion in or something along those lines.
Oh,
so it's an issue. It could be an issue.
I was going to say the other thing was.
See, that's why you need J3 Consulting to do this kind of stuff.
The FBI refused to send discovery.
Is that legal? That's not legal.
They just
busting.
They just didn't want to do it because listen. Remember, Candace wanted me to come back and turn myself in Tampa. I ended up getting caught.
Oh, you pissed her off again.
So she's furious. She's upset because she wanted the case to be moved to Tampa, and the Secret Service was saying no. And keep in mind too, the U.S. Attorney didn't really care. Like the U.S. Attorney in Tampa was like, he didn't care about having this case. But the prosecutor in Atlanta loved the fact that Dateline had done a special on me. I'd had all this press coverage. She wanted that. This guy,
why did the Tampa guy not care?
He just didn't. His name's Robert Mazakowski. He ended up being the U.S. Attorney in the Middle District of Florida. And he's not there because he wanted a whole bunch of limelight. He's just going through prosecuting cases. And
good for him.
This woman this was her moment to shine.
I would have thought after you terrorized the entire city of Tampa and all the surrounding provinces for years and years and years as
so disrespectful
as just a criminal in the night that they would have wanted that case right on the home turf, but I guess not.
I guess he didn't care. And keep in mind too, here's the other thing. At this point, it's mid to late 2007. So
Casino Royale's out on DVD now.
No, I saw it. When I got to Coleman, when I finally got to federal prison, I actually finally saw it one day.
Great movie.
Yeah, I sat down with popcorn. I sat there. I was like, nice. Like I was like, yeah, it's been a long time. So,
been to the Ocean Club. Didn't see any dead bodies in hammocks, but wish I would have. Anyway, besides the fact,
what ends up happening with that is that by the time the FBI comes in, it's mid to late 2007. What's happening?
Banking crisis.
Oh,
yeah. Things are starting. The cracks are showing.
Yep.
Right. Like they're really. It's getting bad. It's not 2008 yet, so it's not the full blown, but it's happening, and people are going, "This is insane!" Like things are going bad. People are going into foreclosure.
No docs, right? I mean, we're starting the no docs process
now
of
it's
getting the loans.
And now the articles are showing up. This is what they've been doing. Yep. Oh my gosh, can you believe this? Yep. These horrible, horrible bankers. And I'm like, hey, I'm a low-level fraudster, bro. Like I don't work at Merrill Lynch. Like I'm not at Bank of America. I'm not making these types of decisions that led to this. Matter of fact, it wouldn't matter what the underwriting guidelines were. None of this helped contribute to what I did at all. I wasn't doing no-doc loans.
For a refresher for people, just explain your racket.
My loans were, I said racket, like flew out here. So my stuff wasn't no-doc. It was full documentation. So if I was getting my guy a loan, he's got W-2s, pay stubs, maybe 1040s. He's got his money is in the bank. It's been in the bank for at least 90 days. Whether the bank was true or not, whether there was actually an employer or not, had a tax ID number, had a registered bank. It looks legit. Like I don't need a liar loan to get this guy qualified. He's got 710 credit scores. He's always got perfect credit, money in the bank, honest job, canceled checks, bank statements. He's good. He's a solid conventional customer. I don't need loose guidelines. He could have gotten that loan 10 years earlier. He could get it to this day. Every one of my guys were perfect. So and people start blaming, making these comments like, this is the reason that the economy is collapsing because of people like you. Like, are you insane? My little tiny...
I was stealing from the people who are doing this.
Yeah, my little $15 million is nothing compared to that. And here's the thing. But when the FBI shows up, they're saying you've got $55 million. They're saying $15 million that you're personally responsible for your scam in Ybor City and while you were on the run, plus $40 million that went through.
Where are they getting the 40?
It's like ghost dope.
Well, the continuing scheme, if they could tie in one piece of any of his 15 million, if they can, then we're going to continue that scheme and add the economic loss.
He doesn't even know what happened, and he knows what happens. So he knows what
it's a great piece, that we could do.
Like,
it's not a great piece, but it's a great piece for us.
Basically, what happened? Like 3 or 4, they interviewed all my mortgage brokers. And they're like, oh, we're doing a $2-3 million a month. And I'd say, I don't know, maybe 60 or 70% of that is fraud. Oh, okay, $2 million, 60% of that times how long did Matt own the business? $40 million. Like, that's it. It's like ghost dope. They catch you with a little bit of dope. You know what ghost dope is?
No.
So some guy's selling a little bit of cocaine they catch you. And then, of course, they talk to 2 of the other guys you've been selling to. They go, I've been buying this much a week from him for the last 5 years. And they add it up. Next thing you know, you've got a 20 kilo conspiracy. And you're like, what's happened?
Jim's having a trip down memory lane over here.
It's really good.
I'm actually very much at peace over this.
Right? And that's what they did. So I got Candace saying $40 million plus $15 million. And I'm like, the brokers that were underneath me, I'm getting charged for their frauds. Now, they've all come in at this point, and they've all cooperated. So when I was on the run, like Amanda's cooperated, Trina's cooperated, the brokers that helped me cooperated, everybody across the board already cooperated. The FBI, when I get there, everybody in my case in Tampa cooperated. So there's like 12 to 14 people that were indicted on my indictment, but they're unnamed co-conspirators. So it's like KB, CJ, right. TY. Now I know DW. I know who DW is,
but the public doesn't.
Right.
That's the point. Yeah.
And so what's so funny about those people is they're listed like that, and so many of those same people will say to this day, like, I never got in trouble. I didn't do anything wrong. You were on my indictment, bro. So what happened was they caught me. They've got everything. They know everything. And I'd love to sit here and say, like, I only told them what they already knew. Like, so I'd have buried every one of those dudes. If they'd kept their mouth shut, I'd have cut every one of those dudes' throats. Unfortunately,
you were the last one standing.
I was the last one. And so that one didn't help. And the second thing that didn't help was the fact that the entire economy is slowly starting to collapse. So, and this ultimately happens, right? Ultimately, what happens is after they leave, they say, we're investigating it. We're looking into it. My prosecutor comes to my lawyer and says, listen, Mr. Cox has cooperated. He's going to get a 5K. We will consider his cooperation for a 5K1, which means a sentence reduction. They'll reduce my sentence.
To the judge directly from the prosecutor.
Right. And 99.99.99% of the time, the judge is going to go with it. Like almost 100%.
Yes.
Have you ever even heard?
I've never heard of a 5K not being considered and acted upon.
Right. Now, is he going to give him exactly what? Still about 99%. He's going to give it to him. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I felt pretty confident because they said they'd consider it. And substantial assistance is helping the government. So they said, we'll consider these 2 substantial assistance. Cool. She said, also, we want Mr. Cox to be interviewed by Dateline. And I was like, told my lawyer, they're going to make me look bad. Like they already did one 1-hour special on me. It was horrible,
They wanted you to, that's a part of their stipulation?
Well, it was just they just asked. Let's say they requested it. So you tell me I have to be in front of a judge with this U.S. attorney going in front of the judge. Do I want to say yes? I want a reduction, and oh, by the way, fuck you as far as your have me interviewed? No.
Right.
If they said, look, Mr. Cox, from now on, we're going to want you to wear your jumpsuit backwards, I'd be like, of course. I'm embarrassed. I haven't been doing that this whole time. I'm sorry you had to ask me. So the point is that they asked me to be interviewed. They said they thought it would help. It would help reduce crime. It would show people the seriousness of this.
You're gonna make people
And
love
it
it.
would- and it would put her in the spotlight.
She gets to be interviewed
period.
again.
So she gets hired by the huge defense firm or
Right.
white collar firm down the line. Yep, beautiful.
And Gail McKenzie, by the way, Gail McKenzie had been a young prosecutor. This is what my lawyer had told me, and I may have this slightly off, but I'm pretty sure I'm 99% sure that accurate on this. At one point, she had been a young prosecutor. She was prosecuting someone for fraud, and they were Russians, and they actually poisoned her.
Oh shit.
So she ended
They'll
up
do that.
Ended up in the hospital. So when people say, "Well, it's just fraud," she would get extremely offended. Fraud leads to violence. It leads to she took it to heart, and she stayed a prosecutor and became a prosecutor the whole time. And her specialty the entire time was fraud.
Not good for you.
No. So I end up doing Dateline. So I do Dateline with
From prison?
from jail. Yeah, I was in the U.S. Marshals holdover because if you were in the Bureau's custody, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, they will not let a camera in, but the U.S. Marshals will.
Why is that?
I don't know. Oh, I know why the Bureau won't, because of
Conditions.
Club Fed. There was a is it 2020? Who was Barbara Walters with 2020?
2020.
A lot of stuff.
I think she was 2020.
Yeah. So they did something called Club Fed. Yeah, that's her.
That's the prosecutor.
That's my prosecutor.
Okay, that's on the screen right there.
So
Yikes.
yeah,
She's not a looker.
no, she was pissed about it. She was very angry.
Yeah.
I don't want to be mean, but
She looks like her best days were behind her, unfortunately. I guess you were like one of her last hurrahs. Or was she hanging in there?
I don't know. Many people came to prison after I was in prison but we had the same
Oh,
prosecutor.
from her?
Oh, yeah.
She's not dead yet?
No,
was
she's
old
dead
back
now.
then. Okay. I
She's
was
dead
gonna say.
now. But it's funny too, because when my attorney told me that she had passed away, she was like, "Don't say anything negative on this email." But Gail McKenzie passed away, and I remember I said, "I'm indifferent." I said, she, in her mind, she did the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, you were guilty, as you say. You were guilty of
Absolutely.
every single thing you were convicted of.
Yeah,
so
no doubt.
Yours
So-
is a pretty open shut case.
Yeah, I'd love to hate her.
Yeah.
But
What are you gonna
what
do?
am I going to do when you're right and I'm wrong?
Yeah.
So anyway, what ends up happening is I do Dateline, and not a great episode.
Why?
This is the second time. They edit it so I'm actually smiling and chuckling at parts where I wasn't smiling and chuckling.
Oh, man. They dipsy dude you.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
But once again, didn't have a lot of leg to stand on. It's not like,
You didn't get final cut on that?
yeah, this guy, what a jerk. And he frustrated me a few times. Like I'd never been really interviewed.
Who was it? Do you remember the guy?
Yeah, it was the guy. He's like, is he
Talks real slow.
Canadian? He's got white hair.
Yes. I do know.
2020 it was?
No,
Or
this,
Deadline?
no, this
Sorry.
is Dateline.
Dateline?
I do. The other thing I was going to tell you, nice
Got
move.
like a horse face, like a long.
I know exactly. Nice job on the email, because there's a case, one of my old high school buddies, similar type of deal. Name was Mike McGrath, gets prosecuted, convicted, goes to prison. Same type of thing. The prosecutor had some issues, so his lawyer wrote, "Hey, so-and-so, just had something bad happen in the guy's life." He wrote back, "Good, because he tattooed the AUSA's, the prosecutor's initials prior to this with a kill sign."
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So now they find it. Guess what? 10 more years.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, I mean, think about that's Nice job on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
not reaching out and being like, fuck this bitch or whatever.
No, listen, I've already seen people get.
She already
fucked
got
up.
her punishment. Just look at her picture.
I've already seen people get fucked up for barely saying anything.
That's it.
And
Exactly.
it doesn't matter.
Or on those prison phones.
And honestly, I was indifferent. Like I don't hate you. I just went out of prison.
Yeah.
Like you did what you're doing your job. That's fine. So,
How long from
Keith Morris?
is that the name of the guy?
Keith Morris, Dateline.
Let's check it out. How long after you were arrested until?
That's him. That's the guy.
Oh, that's the dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Yep. That's the guy.
What a jerk.
All
So
right, we'll
this
stick
is the
that in
guy.
the corner of the screen.
This is the guy who these are the kinds of things he did. Like he's professional. Like he knows what he's doing. I have no clue. Here, and he would do stuff like this. You hurt a lot of people, and I go, well, I financially inconvenience some people, but I mean, I don't think I hurt any. And he's like, you hurt a lot of people, and I said, I didn't hurt anybody. You hurt a lot of people, and I go. I mean, why are you like, I didn't physically harm anybody. You hurt a lot of people. And I go, listen, apparently I said, you're stuck on the word hurt. So yeah, I hurt a lot of people. I said, can we move on?
You gave him what you wanted.
Guess what made the clip? You hurt a lot of people. Yeah, I hurt a lot of people. Can we move on?
There you go. Yep. Little dipsy do.
Oh,
That's the kind of thing.
this is pre-media Matt Cox.
This is me not knowing what I'm
Yeah.
doing. And keep in mind, they edit it, and when it's done, you're going, "Oh my God, that's not what happened." And people, when you got the other inmates going, "Damn, bro, you're like a psychopath." I'm like, you kidnapped someone and tortured them.
You hurtful son of a bitch.
I'm like, you hurt some people. And he said, "Yeah, I financially inconvenienced some people." But, so anyway, so I end up going to So I remember when the FBI shows up. Right, this is Candace. Candace is already like 6 foot tall.
She did come to visit you.
Not visit me. She interrogated me. It wasn't visit. We weren't
Visit,
friends. She
interrogate.
didn't get me a hamburger out of the
Were you turned
out of the machine.
Did she turn you on?
What?
Was
She's
there like a thing? I felt like there was a thing between you two. Last time with the phone calls and everything, there was a lot of sexual tension going on. I'm just saying. You said she had a nice rack, so
she did have a
See?
big set of fake.
see.
Yeah. But she's a giant, and I'm tiny. And
I don't know if you're
not.
into that. You might be.
I'm not. So what happens is
Might be worth the climb.
So she comes and she gets me and walks me in. And I remember when I walked in, she took the handcuffs off me and I rubbed my wrist. And she goes, "Do your wrist hurt?" And I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Get used to it."
Whoa.
And I was just like, "Oh my God.
Cold bitch.
And I was just like, and listen, I mean, every snide comment she could make, she made one after another after another.
You've been frustrating her for like 6 years, so I hear her.
And I remember my attorney at one point even said, "Hey, do we have to? Can we stop with the mean spirited comments?" She was honestly, can we try and be professional? And she went, she was just.
I need you two on a podcast. So
She
bad.
was. Oh, she disliked me. She didn't
That's what you
find me
think.
comical at all.
Do we
Never.
have a picture of her? Can we?
Yes, can we pull that
I'm
up?
sure
I've
Candace
seen.
is-
I've gotten a look before. Can we pull up a picture of
That's
Candace?
the Secret
That's not
Service
her.
agent. No, that's his.
Type, what was her last name? Candace.
Candace Calderon.
Yeah.
And this is Andrea Peacock. Very polite, very nice, very professional.
Yeah. Candace Calder. I think I saw her LinkedIn after last time.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. She was teaching at like a shooting range or some shit.
Yeah, like personal self-defense.
Yeah, there
Is
she
that her
is.
right
There she is.
Yikes.
She's older now.
there? Yeah,
Shit.
yeah. It's not good. And she
Jim,
was
that's
wearing,
your former fucking coworker, pal.
and she was wearing heels.
There she is with my director.
Are
Look
you
at
serious?
the size of her. There's Louis Free.
Oh yeah,
Look at the
yeah.
size of her. Wow.
Yeah, she is tall.
Yeah, she's a big chick
You're looking up at her.
and aggressive and angry.
Shoot the gun.
Listen, look, that's her in her 50s.
Squat and stop smiling. Just
Yeah.
pull the trigger.
Imagine her in her late 30s, early 40s.
No.
Listen,
Yeah.
she was a looker.
She did look a lot better in her LinkedIn picture.
Is that her LinkedIn right there? No.
No.
No, that's not her.
No,
Okay.
she used to have one. I don't know. I've definitely seen it because that's not what she looked like. I definitely saw some of these pictures. I remember something about shooting, but that's not what she's wearing. Like sunglasses and stuff there. I think she's looking purposely tough too.
None of those are her.
That's not her, right? Hire former FBI
No.
agent.
All right. We'll continue on. So she's staying in there. She's making snide comments left and right.
Yeah, she's making a snide comment. She didn't like me. So, we talk, we do the several days, and then eventually that's over. Then I do the Dateline, Morris, whatever his name is, Keith. Keith comes and sees me. That whole thing goes bad. Then I'm waiting because my lawyer had said if you're interviewed by the Secret Service and FBI and you do the Dateline interview, they'll consider it substantial assistance and U.S. attorney will reduce your sentence. Great.
So you're coming off 32. What are you thinking in your head?
Well, first I get my PSI and it says 32 years left. So I get my pre-sentence report, right? Like a probation officer comes and you answer a bunch of questions, like whatever. How was you grew up? How'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up? Your brothers, sisters, So I tell them everything that all the questions, and then of course they talk to the U.S. attorney and say, well, what did he do? What's he pled guilty to? Well, how much money? What's the dollar amount? How many people was he in charge of? Was it? And then they rack up.
Real quick to all my Discord people out there, the Julian Dorey Discord is officially live. I put the link down in the description below. So go hit that, join the community, and say what's up. There's all kinds of features in there, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. Let's get it popping.
So my base level offense was about 6 or 7 years, right? So which
is significant, even on the baseline.
Well, that's because I had prior
So your
charges.
guideline was right. So your guideline goes his criminal history, these things, and then they build on that.
Right. And if I just like what Jim said was like look, if I didn't have a criminal history, it wouldn't have been 6 years.
Not
it would
even
have been
close.
Yeah, it would have been a couple
2
years.
Yep.
Right. And if you get the right judge, you might even get probation.
Yep.
Maybe. So, but I got 6 years. That's fine. But then you say, okay, well, but what he did was sophisticated. Okay, so that's 2 extra points. And
how do they define
and he was the leader
sophisticated?
of this scheme.
Right.
So he was the one who came
How are
up
they
with
defining sophisticated?
they said so. So
Very subjective.
Listen, but I mean, honestly, it was more sophisticated than me. Just
Yes.
So it's not like I can.
You were a very good
And
fraudster.
trust me, I made all those arguments with my lawyer. My lawyer's like, seriously, you don't think that you obtained people's identities, you obtained driver's license, you obtained their bank statements, you obtained
Created
you
a bank.
created this, you
Invented
created
jobs at the Salvation Army.
Yeah. Credit reports. And I was like, all right, enough with you. So I've had enough of this. Move on. Then it was, leader organizer. Then it was how many people were you over? Even though those people were all indicted and their names weren't listed, right? So they don't have actually people. Doesn't matter. You were in charge of more than 10 people. Okay. Then you were, then it was you changed jurisdictions to evade detection, right? Because I did. During the scheme, I was doing stuff in one county, in another county, in another county, all over Florida.
And then you were all over states and on the run.
Oh, and then I took off on the run too and continued to commit fraud. So your fraud continued in jurisdiction. Okay. Then it was, bro, it just, honestly, it just goes on and on. And so it ends up being 18 years of enhancements on top of the 6.
So you're sitting 24 now. So you're way up in the 50s on your guideline.
Plus 2 years for aggravated identity theft. So it really was 30. So it came up to 32 years. But two of the enhancements we argued. So because when I got the 32-year PSI, I flipped out. I said, I'd rather go to trial. Might as well go to trial. At least at trial, I can argue these things and try and mitigate the circumstances. I said, maybe I'll get less than 32 years. So there's no benefit for me if I'm getting the max right now.
Yeah.
And I said, I can at least argue. And so, of course, she went back to the U.S. attorney. U.S. attorney came back and said, okay, listen, I'm sending the Secret Service agent down there. You guys can talk about it. She already had a number in mind, right? So I go in, we argue. I'm like, there was just a couple of the enhancements that just didn't apply, that I felt didn't apply. And so they dropped some of these enhancements, 1 or 2 of them, right? And then my lawyer said, so it got down to where it was 26 years and 4 months. And my lawyer said, look, this enhancement, this one, and there were like 4 enhancements. She goes, I'm going to argue those in front of the judge, which you're allowed to. We're going to get those taken off, and you're going to be at 12 years. Then you're going to get a reduction. Yeah.
She said you were going to be down to 12?
12 to 13, yes, roughly.
Oof.
Because it's a range. So she can't guarantee the low end.
Yeah.
So they could argue for the high end, and maybe it's almost 14. It was like whatever 13 and
God, they
10
play
months.
with years in a fucking
Like it's
15-minute hearing.
And
like
they
it's nothing.
months. It's all months, so
Yeah,
it's
it's
even more like
Yeah, because now you got to do math.
you got to do math, and
They throw in
they're
notes.
constantly like, well, you got 6 months. You know, you only got it's all for a reason.
So I say, okay. I'm like, okay. So she's like, look, let me give you an example. And she reads the example. Is that what you did? And I was like, no, that's not it at all. And she's like, right, that's a slam dunk. We'll win that. Nice.
Oh, never
She's
good
like-
when your lawyer says slam dunk.
It seemed like a slam dunk though. Like one of them, she said, this enhancement was an enhancement for, it was using a charitable institution or government institution in furtherance of your crime. And they said, because I had a Salvation Army ID. So I had an ID that said I worked for the Salvation Army. I had a
With
little picture.
your wanted poster.
My wanted picture on it, right. So
Can we pull up Matt Cox wanted picture? Keep going.
So because of that, they said that, and the example they give a very specific example. They said, if you were going and saying, hey, I'm collecting money on behalf of the Cancer Society, and you gave me $50, and then I went and I did that throughout a whole neighborhood for 2 weeks, and I got $50,000 total. I would have been using the Cancer Society to get money. So I'm borrowing on behalf of this Cancer Society. She goes, is that what you did? And I was like, no. I'm like, I had a badge. Like that was it. These people, that badge meant nothing to these people. Nobody ever saw that, or they gave me their information because I gave them $20. Mm-hmm. That was it. So anyway, what ends up happening is, so there were like 3 of those. So we get in front of the judge. My lawyer argues one enhancement, and the judge goes, nah, I disagree, overruled. And I'm like, right then, you just add like 4 years on your sentence. Ooh. And then the next one, boom, same thing. Bam, another 4 or 5 years. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I'm realizing like that's just, my 12 just shot up to fucking 12 went to 16, 16 just went to 21. And then when they got to the badge one, she said, Your Honor, he was giving people money. He was this, he was that. He wasn't doing that. And the judge went, yeah, but I feel he tarnished their name. Boom. And I'm like, oh. And then he rambles off the whole thing and he says, oh yeah. Oh, wait. Sorry. I missed something. Damn. I never tell this part of the story, so I'm not as good at it.
You're doing great.
I forget.
Keep going.
So here's the thing. The night before the sentencing, I call my attorney and I say, hey, did you ever find out what Gail McKenzie, the U.S. prosecutor, has agreed to reduce my sentence by? What's the motion she's going to make for a reduction? Is she going to ask for 1 level off, 5 levels off? Because each level represents so many months, right? It gets progressively worse. And she said, yeah, Matt, I did talk to her. And she said that nobody has been arrested yet. So because nobody's been arrested, they're not going to recommend that your sentence be reduced. And I said, but what about, I was also, did the Dateline interview. And she said, yeah, I know. But she said, it's just not enough.
Which is bullshit, because it's not about results. That's up to the government to make results with regards to his information that he provided. It's his intention to provide information to the government.
Wow.
So that's bullshit.
Now, could a lawyer argue that in court?
They could, but remember the judge.
He had a public defender.
He also has, obviously has a
I'm
judge
in the 11th Circuit too.
Yeah, he's in the worst place he could possibly be, judge-wise.
So it actually says to, if you helped, either get arrests or indictments, arrests, or further the investigation.
That's right.
So just by helping and moving it forward.
That's assistance, substantial assistance.
Right.
Yeah.
Not according to Gail McKenzie. So what ends up happening is,
that's fucked up.
So I get in there, we make the arguments to get 26 years down to about 12 years. And I'm thinking, okay, get it to 12 years. And when they arrest some of these people, I'll get my sentence cut by at least half. Like that's what I'm thinking, half. Usually it's about a third, but I'm daydreaming. I'm like, at least a third. I mean, at least a half. So what happens is Yeah, and I have the RDAP program, so I was going to get a year off because I had talked to some guys in prison. And they said, "Say you're a drug addict," and I was like, when I did the PSI, I was like, "I'm addicted to opiates. I love them. Don't know anything about them. Couldn't tell you anything about them. Luckily, this guy asked nothing." So what ends up happening is the judge says, he says some really unflattering things about me.
What did he say?
He said I was borderline. I think I don't know if it's sociopathic or psychopathic, but I was a borderline psychopath. He said that what I did was very personal. He said because unlike a CEO who cooks the books, my crimes had a very personal effect on people. I'm pretty sure that the people that cooked the books that destroyed the economy had more of an effect on people than the few people that lost a little bit of money and paid an attorney.
To be clear out there, and people can listen to the first 2 episodes, because obviously you were guilty of everything you did and you had to go away. And there's no questions there. But your main victims were the financial institutions.
I have 4.
Because the people who you stole identities from, you got to get punished for that too. But they got their shit back.
So I had over 50 victims, right? Really, it's 52 victims because one of the things they did was they double counted some of the victims. And I mean victims, I mean Bank of America. So they said, "Oh, you stole $300,000 from Countrywide. And you stole $250,000 from Countrywide Home Loans."
Who crashed the whole fucking world?
Yes. Yeah. But listen, hear what they said. To get me over the 50 mark, you stole $400,000 from Countrywide Bank. You stole $250,000 from Countrywide Home Loans. You stole $420,000 from Countrywide Financial Services. And you stole $1 million from Bank of America. And I'm like, wait a minute, Bank of America bought Countrywide. Wait a minute, that's one. And they said, no. Each one of those is a different institution. And then, listen, you want to know what my other enhancements was? Listen to this. So you stole more than $1 million from one financial institution. And I go, who? Countrywide. I said, what are you talking about? You said 400,000, 200,000, 400,000. Yes, but for these purposes, we're going to add them together.
If it starts with Countrywide, you stole it.
Yeah, because they were all purchased by Bank of America. So Bank of America was defrauded for over $1 million. It's actually $2 million. But the point is that they hit me with that. So it was like, and my lawyer, the whole time I'm looking at my lawyer can they do that? And she's like, they can. And it's like, thank God you're here. So anyway, thank you. So anyway, what ends up happening is
surprised you didn't fire her in the courtroom.
But once again, she's a very nice person. She is.
You
very
don't
nice
care about that. You're looking for years off.
I know, but she didn't have. There was nothing she could do.
Yeah.
Plus, she had 7 million other cases in the public defender's office, so she could.
Genuinely, when I got 26 years, she started crying. And she'd been doing it 15 years. And look, the judge was just brutal to me.
Didn't you put his quote on the front of your book?
Of course I did. One of his quotes was, in front of my book, my favorite quote of all time is what does it say? It's right there. It's the scope, complexity, and nefariousness of Cox's fraud are breathtaking. I love that.
On the front of the fucking book.
I love his wanted poster.
So the one on the left was a Salvation Army picture.
That's before the hair transplants and the.
We'll put the book and we'll put the wanted poster in the corner of the screen simultaneously.
Yeah, look at the hair. That's like
or back to back.
So sad.
Yeah, look at the hair. That's post plugs, right?
And that's also me trying to cover it. So see how I'm parting it in the middle, like pulling it over?
Well, no, I was going to say the one on the left looks like it's post plugs, but the one on the right looks like it's not.
Both of them are.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, somehow you're still looking all right on the left.
No, you understand I'm pulling it like this. I'm doing it in the middle and I'm covering it. It went way back. You just can't see it because I'm parting it in the middle. Look at that part. Who parts their hair in the middle?
Matt Cox. Matthew Bevan Cox.
So,
wow.
Gerald Scott Cogno.
So lawyer starts crying.
Oh, she's so listen, I end up leaving. Look, and I was crying like a small child, like a baby. Like,
did you have family in the courtroom?
Yes, my mom's in tears. My dad is, he's just irritated in general. But yeah, oh yeah, just, I have 2 aunts that listen. One of my aunts my aunt and her husband have a ton of money. Okay. They live in Atlanta. So they went and she spoke. God bless her. She is an entitled white woman, right? And she said, Your Honor, I pay taxes, and this is a waste of my money to put him in prison.
Oh, Lord.
Please stop. Please
Auntie,
stop
please.
her. And genuinely said it and genuinely thought,
I really helped him here.
yeah,
What a solid I just did my nephew.
yes. And I just was like,
I thought you were getting emotional for a minute. I thought you was going to be saying something like nice.
not
Kinda was.
good. Aunt
Oh, thank you, Auntie.
Catherine, I appreciate it, but dear God.
Please be quiet. Next.
So anyway, not that there was nothing that anybody could have said at all was going to change anything. But the point is, of course, I waddle off. I've got my little cuffs on, and I waddle off.
You have the feet cuffs too.
Yeah, of course. And I go all the way down, and they put me in the U.S. Marshals in the holdover. And of course, my lawyer comes down and says, "How are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, we have to appeal this." And she's like, "Oh, you signed a waiver saying you can't appeal." And I was like,
my God.
"Ooh, when did I sign that?"
Attorney mispractice,
Yeah.
malpractice.
I mean, I'm desperate. So she's like, "Look, it doesn't matter. They're still investigating these crimes. When they indict these people, your time will be reduced." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's not. How much is going to get reduced? Half?
And
Even
it's
if
the
it's
great
half,
unknown.
it's still 13 years at half." I'm like, "Well, what's going on?" Like, I'm flipping out. And she's like, "Don't worry. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay." And it's not going to be okay.
How long, considering 2 things here, considering all the things the judge ended up ruling out that you didn't think he would,
Right.
and then also considering the fact that you were counting on getting time eventually taken off your sentence too. What was your mindset before this happened going into it? Were you thinking like, all right, this is going to be like 6 years, 5 years?
Yeah, I thought genuinely I'll be out of prison in about 3 more. I'd already done a year. I got arrested November 16th, sentenced and a year later on November 16th. So I figure I got a year in. I figure, even if I get 4 or 5 years, I'm going to go straight to a low, go to RDAP, get a year off. I'll be out of here in 3 years. I might be in a halfway house in 2 or 3 years. I'm good.
And now you get 26.
I'm good. Bro, I filled out some paperwork. They don't give people 20, 30 years for filling out paperwork.
Apparently they do.
Damn.
Oh my God, do they? So what ends up happening is, I get on the bus, I go back. I remember walking into Atlanta City Detention Center, and I walked in there, and I remember by that point, I had finally cleaned myself, got myself together. Let's put it that, cleaned myself up, got myself together. I was almost for probably 10 minutes, I was just couldn't stop crying. But by the time I got back, I was okay. It had been an hour. You get put in a little bus. They move you back. They have to uncuff you and go through all the process again. But it takes by the time they even drop you off at the center, it's an hour before you're back at your pod. As soon as I walked in my pod, I'd just been on the news. And literally they were like, "You don't understand. You were off the news for 2 minutes when me and 6 other guys walk in. We're all chained together, right? And we waddle in, and I look up, and these guys are literally 150 guys do this from the TV. And they're just looking at me. Guys are literally going, shaking their head, putting their head down, walking away, and I immediately start crying again. Just because I realized, if you guys are upset, how bad is this? These guys are genuinely, these guys, I've known them for 6 months because I was in another jail before that for 6 months. So, or another U.S. Marshals holdover, they moved me. But the point is that, these guys are upset. And I went into my room and laid down, and guys are walking in every 2 minutes going, "Bro, man, Cox, I know it sounds bad, but you're going to be able to figure, you're a smart guy. You're going to get yourself out of this. You're going to figure something out. You're going to," yeah, I know. Look.
And you're yeah, I just got fucked.
I'm done. I'm sitting there I'm done. Guys are telling me, "Bro, I'm not going to forget about you, bro. I've got a couple years." "Oh, I've already," you always get this too. Guys will come up to you and guys will say "Bro, when I get out, I'll get you out." And what that means is,
We're going to get you out of there.
Now
You don't belong in there.
Throw it Title 20. Basically, they're going to go through this rule that says, I'll provide information that's helpful to him. That's how, for somebody to feel like that, it only happened in the mafia years ago. They would do that.
So you
They
made
come
an
on board
effect
and
on
say-
some of these guys.
Yeah,
You develop
but they know-
relationships quick.
He got screwed. I mean, for a 5K letter to be based on actual results that the government is responsible for in other cases, it's unheard of. Substantial assistance is what
nothing.
he offered. Assistance. What you do with it is your responsibility, not his.
Oh, Jim.
Jim. It's
this
unbelievable.
This is about to get so much worse.
Jeez.
So I've got guys like a third party Rule 35. A Rule 35 is a 5K one after you've been sentenced. So it's when you provide cooperation, but this is after you. So they file a 5K, a Rule 35 after you've been sentenced, and they get your sentence reduced after, not at sentencing, but later.
And it's being held over you because you don't know.
Right. So a third party Rule 35 is when he provides and he goes and it busts somebody
For
me, and he says,
for him.
I don't want anything,
Give it to him.
but
Yes.
I just knocked these two fucking dudes off, and they just got 15 years apiece, and I don't want any credit because I don't need any. I want Matt Cox to get time off his sentence.
Okay.
That's
real quick. Let's just stop, go to the bathroom because I got to go too. Jim's going. But all right, we'll pick up right there.
Yeah, bro. Now it's going to get good.
All right, we're back. Go ahead.
All right. So guys are saying all this, right? Like I end up a week or two later, I get transferred to the U.S. Marshals holdover, which is in the Atlanta penitentiary. It was the Atlanta penitentiary. They've changed it since then, but whatever. It was the Atlanta pen. There was a holdover. I got transferred there for like a week or so. Then I got moved to Coleman. Now, because I had 26 years, even though I have a nonviolent crime, if you have more than 20 years to serve, they have to send you to a medium security prison. So I go to a medium security prison, and a medium security prison is a prison. It's just what you think of a prison. There's 2 tiers. The doors are thick and heavy, and they lock, and they can feed you through the doors. There's bunk beds. There's there's a toilet and sink combo, right? Like the silver, what do you call it? The stainless steel.
Yes.
So that whole thing. So I get there. And you're just gonna pull that. You want to just pull that thing out?
Just yank it the fuck
Just pull
out.
it
We're
out.
good. There we go.
My God.
All right. Anyway.
And I'm not usually that guy, but boy.
Hold on, I
That was
had
from
to
my
go.
Secret Service training.
Okay.
The inability to remove a fucking Quest bar from a wrapper.
Yeah, sorry. We popped on camera right away. My bad. Anyway, go ahead, Matt.
So I get off the bus, of course, and I'm shackled and everything, and I get out, and they you go through all these people, they question you, the staff officers, right? Like medical has to talk to you, and what's called SIS. SIS is like the internal security, right? Like the FBI that polices the police.
Where's Coleman in Florida again?
Coleman is 1 hour north of Tampa. So from Atlanta, it's
Good
like
location for you.
Yeah, it was. I was lucky. So it was like 4 hours, right? And so I'm like, whatever. It's like a 4-hour drive. It was longer because it's a bus and they have to stop a bunch of time, whatever. So you're on the bus all day. So it's aggravating. But you get there. And so Coleman is the largest federal complex in the nation. It's got 2 penitentiaries, a medium security prison, a low security prison. And at that time, it was a camp. It was a female camp. It's now a male camp.
They had a female prison right there in Coleman.
Trust me, nobody's getting out. It was a female camp. Like nobody's getting out of the low, let alone the medium of the pen. You're just not getting out.
Now, so the low isn't at all cohabitated in any way with the medium.
No.
Okay.
When I say a camp, it's a camp, but the girls they mow the yard.
Right.
Like you have just enough people to basically maintain this massive ground.
Isn't this where you met your wife?
Yeah, but not
mowing
when
the
she
lawn?
was. Not when she was.
No.
My reg number is 4017. No.
Look me up on Dateline.
There are guys that do that. So what ends up happening is I go there, whatever. I'm there. I actually had a cousin there named Reese. Reese was super interesting guy. And so when I got there, the funny thing is my immediate thought process was escape. But after being there for, even a few weeks, I realized you're not getting out of here.
So you actually thought you would escape.
I
from
thought I've
prison.
got 26 years. There's no reason for me to not try and escape. But, you're not escaping from the medium. And then I thought, okay, well, the low, but guys that had gone to the low and come back, because guys will get their points reduced and go to the low and then fuck up and end up coming back, right? Like they'll stab somebody, get into a fight, whatever. They end up coming back. Anyway, I'm at the medium. I meet my cousin. We're talking, and he's explaining, look, it's just not possible. That's never going to happen, And he said, even if you went to the low, honestly, it's not going to happen. So I'm like, right. He said, I was like, okay. And then I thought, okay, my best bet is that at some point after 20 years, so if you've got more than 20 years to go, right? So once you get to 20 years, they'll move me to the low. Once you get to 10 years, they'll move you to a camp. So I thought, with my good time, I've got like 12 years. I'd already been locked up a year. So I got about 12 and a half years to go. So I thought I got about 12 and a half years to go before I get moved to a camp, and I'll leave then. I mean, like, that's just, here's what's happening is it's hope.
I was going to say, you're just hanging on a thread.
I'm hanging on anything. It's whatever can just get me through it. The point is that I go there, I meet my cousin, I meet a couple of guys that I like, we hang out, you get a small group of friends.
What was your cousin in for?
A meth conspiracy.
Got it.
Or manufacturing meth. Super smart guy. He's one of those guys that, like, if it weren't for drugs, he would be a college professor right now. Like, he's just brilliant, absolute meth addict. I mean, it's just devastated him. He's
a shame.
It's horrible, And I mean, and I hear you chuckling and laughing. Like, I chuckle and laugh too, but I also want to mention that it's one of those things that's just tragic, right?
Yeah.
So, but an absolute hilarious guy. I mean,
a Cox, hilarious. Come on.
Listen, he's so funny. And I mean, in just this backwoods country, Florida kind of way, kind of like when he tracked me down at the medium, he looks exactly what you think he looks like. He's tall, thin, missing teeth, long hair, skinny. Total meth head. Even off meth, he looks like he's on meth. And I mean, he comes to my cell and he opens the door, steps in, he looks at me and he goes, Matt Cox? And I go, and I look up and I go, yeah. He goes, his name's Townsend, Reese Townsend. He goes, Reese Townsend, how you doing? Puts his hand out and I go, hey, Reese. And he goes, I'm your cousin. And I go, not by blood. He's, no, you got lucky there. You got lucky. And I shake his hand and I go, well, how are you doing? Well, I just want to make sure you're okay. You have everything? I feel like I got everything. Well, I got you some shower slides and I got you some. Come over to my place tonight. Your place, your cell, my house where I live.
Do mess with me.
He brings me over there. He's got a whole bunch of stuff, a little bag full of stuff that he's got for me. Like it's like a little kit.
Welcome kit.
Welcome kit. Lots of guys do that, especially Spanish guys tend to do it. They're the best at it. You show up, you've got soups, you got a lock, you got shower slides, you got everything you need till you can pay them back. That's it. Like they take care of it.
It's a little bit of a loan shark cake too.
No, not initially. But
okay.
Anyway, give it time. So anyway, yeah, he gave me a bunch of stuff. Super good guy. Made my time really much easier. I immediately, within a month, I was teaching GED classes, and probably just as I was kind of wrapping up the last 3 years. So here's something I'll mention. I owed $6 million. That's what I ended up arguing my sentence down. They said I owed 9.5. First, of course, they said you owe 15. Then it was 11.5. Then it got down to you owe 9.5. Then I argued so much that they said, fine, we'll make it 6 million.
And what initially brought it from 15 to 11?
I just argued.
I
want to see the paperwork. I want to see where the loss is. I want to see where you sold the house. There's no way that there was that much of a loss. I know for a fact that this house sold for more money than I actually bought it, which would come off of my time. That would come off of my loss amount. I want to see and the FBI would not send the documents. So we're coming up on my sentencing, and the FBI is not cooperating. So they finally buckled and they said, fine, 6 years. Okay, and my lawyer's like, the next, because it goes in levels. Like the next level down was like, had to be less than like 3 million. She goes, can you get it below 3 million if we get you the paperwork? No.
Mm.
No. So
Jim, does this sound standard? Like they overshoot it that much? Just kind of like hoping that he won't fight it?
Yeah, I think it sounds like just kind of, paralyzing him with numbers.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But there's something else that bothers me a little bit about it.
What's that?
Well, I think the ability to drop down that quickly. There's something more than that. I have a feeling. I have a bad feeling about the case.
And you weren't involved in this one.
I was not
We
involved.
gotta say that. Okay.
But it's a little bit. Sometimes you have some incompetence that leads to having to make some concession.
Yeah.
As opposed to having a lid tight case, which doesn't really sound like there were some opportunities for you there.
Well, I think
had you had maybe, I don't even want to say that. It's not. I don't know what your situation was with defense attorney wise, but if you get a guy like Michael Critchley, Critchley here in New Jersey, I think you walk.
I'm assuming you have to pay him.
Yes.
Yeah, you really got to pay
He
him.
didn't do anything for free.
But
I need free. They took my money.
I think I've told this story before. This guy, I would spend a year on a case, and I not patting myself on the back, but I was a pretty good agent, and I would walk into a trial that he was opening for, and he was going after, representing his client vigorously, and the opening would get done, and I'd usually say, "Shit, I might have fucked this case up."
Felt like I had it down before you start talking.
If I'm saying it.
I think this guy's innocent.
The jury's like, that guy didn't do shit. You idiot FBI agent.
Yeah. I think
sometimes we'd save the day, sometimes we wouldn't.
I think psychologically here, the issue is that you admittedly, like in front of court, were guilty of all these things. So it's easy. They have all the psychology on their
they've got all
side
the
to do
leverage
something.
But what he
Yes.
have with Critchley, he would have never gotten to that level.
Yeah.
So he would have never been talking to them, and
Should've
basically
hired
they would have
Critchley.
just been. But also you're looking at another $1.5 million.
Yeah.
So
No, they wouldn't give me any of my money. Any of that money I rightfully stole.
You rightfully stole.
that
Fine
money,
arts
and
degree guy.
then they took it. So,
and with that crazy Salvation Army picture, I don't know how much we could
my
have done.
God.
I love that picture. I'd need that picture.
That's the best thing ever.
so what happens is, so I remember I went. I still owe like $6 million. So, do you know what FRP is? It's basically you have to. Is it FRP? Yeah, Federal Repayment Program.
Okay.
So,
all right. Yeah.
yeah, you have to make payments, right? Even when you're in prison, you have to make payments. So they give you a job and you make like $12 an hour doing your job, and they want you to pay $150 a month. You know what I'm saying? It's like
You only make $12 an hour? Or do you make
like
that
a
much,
month,
I mean?
a month.
Oh, a month.
A month.
I was going to say.
No.
Because they like pay nothing in prison is what I always thought.
Yeah. No,
I thought you said $12 an hour.
I probably
was like,
did.
What the fuck?
I'm sorry. So I go to my counselor, and I remember we're sitting there. Within a day or so, I'm at my counselor. I've got a cell, and I go to the counselor because you have to see them. And so I sat there, and she says, "Mr. Cox," she says, she looks through and she asks me some questions, whatever. And she says, "Okay, you owe like $6 million." And I was like, "Right." She said, "Well, you have to pay. You're going to have to pay FRP." And I went, well, no. I said, "I don't have to pay FRP." I said, "First of all," I said, "I have no money." She goes, "I know." She said, "But I'm sure you'll get money sent in." I said, "Nobody's sending me money in." And she said, "Well, look, once you get a job and you get going, you're gonna have to pay that." I said, "Listen," she said, "We're gonna have to put you on a payment program." I said, "Look, let me explain." I said, "There's only one thing that my lawyer won at sentencing." I said, and that was that I did not have to pay my FRP while incarcerated. It does not start until after I get out of prison. I said, it starts upon probation. And she goes, "I've never heard of that before." I said, "Listen, this woman argued everything. She only won, I think I said 2 things. One, I don't have to pay interest on the $6 million, which she did argue that and was the only thing she won. And I said, nor do I have to start paying until I get out. And she goes, "Okay, well, I'll look into it and I'll let you know." I said, "Okay." And I left. That's untrue. That was not true. So but I figured, fuck it. I thought she was going to say you owe $25, and I was still trying to get my mom. My mom was going to send me like $50 so I could just get like, not even sneakers, but get like shower slides and some coffee. So, what ends up happening is probably a month or two later, her name was Miss Bates. She dies. So Miss Bates dies. And I get called in by my next counselor. Maybe but you have to get called in like every 6 months, right?
How'd she go?
Oh, she was a heavy smoker. She was probably only in her early 50s, but she was real heavy smoker. Really nice lady, but heavy smoker, not in good health.
Matt, you gotta pay off all
Yeah, 3 packs a
all
day.
your fucking FIP.
3 packs that you can't smoke in federal prison, and she smoked in federal prison. And they
You
were
can't
like,
smoke in federal. I didn't know that.
No, not in federal government. Any of the federal government buildings, nothing.
She wasn't offering you a toke or something.
Bro, listen, this woman, this is 3 packs a day. She didn't even need a lighter. She's one of those from one to the next.
It's a chain smoker.
Died in her sleep. So
That's
a
peaceful.
few months later,
Somebody's hands around her neck.
my new counselor comes, and so he says to me, "Hey, bro, like Cox, you're supposed to be paying FRP. Why aren't you paying?" And I said, "Well, because my lawyer made this argument. Blah blah blah. I don't have to pay till I'm this." I said, "Miss Bates checked it out. I said she saw it. I said, and she said I don't have to pay." And I said, "Check it out." I said, "It's in my file. My file's right here. My file's this thick and it's right here." I go, "Check it out." And he goes, "Yeah, I will. And he says, "All right." He said, "Well, I'll check it out. I'll let you know." I said, "Okay." I leave. 8 months later, we have what's called team. We go to team. Unit manager's there, counselor is there, and whatever, some other idiots there. And we're sitting there, and they're all asking me, "Well, God, Cox, you got forever, bro. Geez, I don't like. There's not much we can even tell you how to." They try to tell you how to prepare to get out. And they're like, "Matt, you got a college degree. You're teaching GED. You're teaching I'm teaching the real estate class at this point, by the way. I teach residential real estate for him. I got about 30, 40 guys, and I don't.
Did you ever go off the lesson manual and teach the little
you
Matt Cox
could.
manual?
You could in the medium because those guys won't tell on you, right? Like openly tell on you. Like you can say, "Look, I'm going to show you how to hide a down payment," and they'd be like, "Holy shit!" Oh, I do all kinds of stuff. So I would do that, and not just that. What was great about that was that these guys don't have. Let's say if there's 35 guys in the class, 25 of them don't even want to be there. Right. So maybe 20 of them don't want to be there. So I would tell them like, "Listen, bro, if y'all don't want to be here, leave. Like leave. I know you want your certificate, so I'll fill out all the paperwork. I'll do all the tests. You give me 2 coffees and like 3 creamers or 2 creamers." And so literally I had my shit was packed with creamers and coffee. So I don't need my mom to send me money because I've got this going on. So, or go get me commissary for this or whatever. And no problem, Cox, gotcha. So that's fine. So when I get called in, they're like, Cox, like they're asking me all these questions and they're like, "Look, you're not paying, why aren't you on FRP refusal?" I go, "Why would I be?" And they're like, "Because you're not paying your FRP." And I said, "I don't have to pay my FRP." And you understand, they automatically take it out of your account.
Yeah.
They're like, "It's never been set up." I go, "It hasn't been set up because," and then I explain, "Mrs. Bates, this is what happened. She checked it out. That's it." I said, "Then Mr. Johnson," or I think his name was like Hernandez or something. "Mr. Hernandez checked it out." I said, "And he agreed I don't have to pay it." Now keep in mind, he's sitting right here. And he goes, yeah, it's in his file. His lawyer made this argument, and she won. He doesn't have to pay interest or his restitution until he pays when he gets out on probation. And they're like, "Oh, okay, cool." I get up and they go, "Okay, you're good." I leave. A year later, I come in. 6 months later, another counselor meeting. I got a new counselor now. "Why aren't you paying FRP?" I said, "Man, you guys need to
Talk to each other.
Make a note, bro."
No.
I said, "Here's what happened." Boom, boom, boom. I go through it again. He's like, "Okay, well, I'll check it out." I said, "All right, man." My next team, same. This time, luckily, when I walk in and they say, "Cox, you're not paying." "Oh, that's right. You don't have to pay." "That's right. No, he doesn't have to pay." Yeah, I remember. Okay, I get up and leave. This goes on for 3 years. I never make a payment. So I then get transferred to the low. By the time I get transferred to
How far in is this?
3 years. By the time I get transferred to the low, this is just before I get transferred to the low. It's been years. So it's been a couple of years. Let's say 2 years in. So I get a year in the U.S. Marshals holdover. Then I get sentenced. I've been in 2 years. One day, I start getting letters from a reporter. And the reporter says, will you answer some questions about this politician that you brought, or that it's my understanding that you helped get him elected. And the FBI asked me about it. And I gave him like 21 grand. His whole campaign was run on like $30,000 and I paid him 21,000.
When was this?
That's how I do it, bro.
I like it.
Jim, can you toss that on airplane mode before I forget to tell you that? Sorry.
So you have
audio.
You have to understand that I owned 100 vacant lots in Ybor City before I was ever arrested, right? So I wanted those. Those were all single family houses. I wanted them rezoned residential. So if I have $1 million in lots, they're now worth $3 or $4 million. And if I need to get you elected to get you to do that, like that's not hard.
That's an easy contribution.
Yeah,
You get that. That's huge money.
That's just good business, bribing a politician. So I bribe this politician. I get him elected. The problem is he didn't get elected and say, okay, I'm all good, I'm elected. What happened was the FBI had investigated him. Because when they investigated me, they noticed that Brandon Green, James Red, Lee Black, all these guys
had contributed to his campaign.
Can you remind people out there who haven't heard your story before about who these guys were?
So your campaign contribution reports are showing these different people at the rate whatever.
Yeah, but Jim, did you hear their did you hear their names?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so I
named
had
them all after
Red,
Reservoir
Green.
Dogs.
Yeah,
love it.
Fake
I had
people.
like David Silver. William Blue, all those guys.
God.
Mr. Pink.
And keep in mind too, I got family members that gave him $500. I've got multiple corporations that gave him $1,000. So he can't. It's like you've got tons of people who've given you. It only came to about 14,000. The rest was cash. But the day I pulled the money out in cash, I gave him like 7,000 in cash. The next day he deposited 6,000 in cash. Only time he ever deposited cash the entire time. And you can see 7,000, 6,000. So he pocketed $1,000. My point is the FBI showed. So one day a reporter writes me a letter. And he says, can I ask you some questions? I call my lawyer. She says, absolutely, answer his questions. I answer his questions. He writes an article. He keeps telling me, I'm going to come see you. Before I publish the article, I need to come see you. I say, okay. Then one day I get called to the lieutenant's office. I'm like, what's up? And he throws a front cover of the St. Petersburg Times, and it's my picture on the front cover of the St. Pete Times. And it says, it's something like jailhouse or letters from a jailhouse, cooperator or something. That's like,
you're like, I could work with that.
oh my God. So.
Yeah, no, I was telling you to pull up his mugshot again. The wanted poster. But yeah. Okay, keep going.
So what happens is, like, that's not good. That doesn't make me look good. So what happens is they throw me in the shoe. I'm in the shoe for whatever, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't want to make it sound like it. Was it?
This is solitary confinement.
Yeah, might have been 45. Might have been 45.
And this is just based on the article that came out?
Yeah, because obviously,
they're
they're not pissed. It's that I'm clear in the article. It clearly says that Mr. Cox is cooperating with the FBI, or it was questioned by the FBI for this. Mr. Cox cooperated, and now I'm writing letters to a politician, a black politician, that obviously I'm trying to get indicted for bribery.
Okay. All right.
So real fast, Matt, I just want to check the audio. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a white guy in a prison that is more like 70 to 80% black, who is clearly cooperating against a black politician. That's not good for me. You see, that's why they threw me in the shoe and said, hey, you got
for your own protection.
Yeah, your own protection. Now, by the time SIS finally saw me, I was like, look, man, I'm not worried. You can put me back on the you can put me back on the compound. Nobody's going to bother me. And I remember I said, listen, bro. I said, if you scream snitch on this compound, I go, half the compound would turn around. And SIS said more than that. He said, listen, 90% of the people in federal prison have cooperated. He said, but 100% of them are lying. He said, so they're all going to be offended by what you did. And he said, okay. He said, so I'll put you back on the compound. If you have any problems, let me know. And I said, okay, cool, no problem. And I go back on the compound. And it's not like I was, friendly with a bunch of people anyway. Like I'd only been there. Well, I'd been there a year or two, a couple of years. Anyway, nobody bothered me. I think I had one guy that came up and told me that they didn't, the stand-up white guys didn't want me to walk the yard anymore. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go walk the yard anyway. Because I just figured I'm just going to get beat up. Like, I'll just get beat up. It's fine. I've been beat up before. I know you look at me and you think tough guy. But I've been beat up before. So I thought, I'll get beat up. It'll be fine. And
How many times have you been beat up in prison to this point?
In prison, at that point, no, I've only had one, really two problems. I only really had one
What
problem
were they
where
over?
I physically actually got, twice when I actually got, one guy jammed his finger in my eye, was yelling at me and hit me, jammed his finger in my eye. Another guy, he bitch slapped me. I would like to say that he punched me because it sounds more manly.
Open hand.
But
It
he
sounds
just
more
open-handed
manly,
you.
but
Yeah.
but technically I'm past that.
Why did he bitch slap you?
Because we were watching TV and he had a sex offense. He wasn't there for a sex offense. He had one in the past. He had it was like a 15-year-old girl or something. He was 30-something years old. He'd been caught.
She looked good,
I was going to say
she looked like she was. I'm sure she looks like she was 18.
at least.
But the point is that he was big on calling people snitches and chomos. But the truth is that
But he was
a chomo and a snitch. So anyway, we were watching TV one day, and some chick came on, and he used to sit behind me. I used to fuck with him nonstop. I mean, I always fucked with him because I figured, like, I have a big mouth, and I figured either you're going to shut your mouth for the next 20-something years and just get cancer and die, or you can run your mouth and periodically somebody will bitch slap you. Which do you want to do? I thought, well, I'm going to run my mouth because I need to have a good time. So I'm going to make the best of this. So I was watching TV one day, and the guy was behind me, and there was some chick walking down a beach. And I used to keep in mind, I used to fuck with him all the time. So like he would say, somebody would be getting released, and they'd go, yeah, I'm getting released in like a couple months. I'm not sure where I'm going to go. Probably going to go to my parents' house or, whatever. And then he would chime in and be like, yeah, I don't know where I'm going to go either. Because at that time, you couldn't go to a halfway house if you had a sex offense in Florida. And I remember he said, yeah, I'm not even going to take halfway house. And it was like, you can't go to halfway
don't
house.
qualify.
Right. So we're kind of like, okay. And then he was like, yeah, I'm not sure where I'm going to go yet. And I said, well, I know where you're not going to go. And he'd go, where's that? And I'd go, anywhere near a church, a daycare, or fuck you, Cox, fuck you. And he'd get up and walk off. So one day, and he's a big guy. He's like 6 foot tall, biker, mustache, right? But we're watching TV in what they call the cracker box, like the white TV room. So you never heard this trick? Yeah. So we're watching TV, and this chick's walking down the beach, and he goes, you wouldn't know what to do with that, would you, Cox? And I go, shit, I got a better chance of hitting that than you do. And he goes, fuck. He said, I want to fuck something out and knock your ass out and fuck you. Like that. And I said, well, I mean, I'm a little bit old for you, Billy. I said, plus I have my high school diploma. And he jumped up and bam, fucking just bashed me. He hit me so hard. I remember thinking that someone had walked, because you would walk around with your chair over your head, right? When you go to walk down to bring your chair into the TV room, you don't want to, it's awkward. So they walk. Yeah. I thought someone had walked in and dropped their chair on me. Like I didn't even realize he had hit me. Because you understand, we would really fuck with each other. So we never got to a point where it was like that. And he, even though he'd scream at me, I never thought he was going to physically attack me. Anyway, yeah, he did. And I remember I jumped up and called him a bunch of names. He called me a bunch of names. And then he turned around and walked off. Okay, fine. I sit back down, and one of the guys in the TV rooms goes, bro, you okay? And I was like, yeah, fuck him. He goes, no, you okay? And I went, yeah, I'm okay. He goes, no, bro, go look in the mirror. You're not okay. And I went, half my eye bloodshot, completely capillaries, whatever, blown out. Right. And I mean, I was like, oh shit.
Concussed.
So I hid, like tried to hide from the guards all for count. I mean, I got through 2 counts. I got through the whole thing. And then couple people dropped notes saying, hey, there was a fight. Cox and Billy were in a fight. And so after count, they called me in. This was at the low. They'd tell on each other left and right at the low. So I went in there and I walked in. I'm like, yeah, what's up? And they're like, and I'm like, what's up? And they're like, no, Cox. No. Look, what happened? I'm like, and Billy walks in too. And I'm like, I'm assuming you know what happened, you know? And I'm like, and he's like, yeah, you two were in a fight. I said, no. I said, a fight assumes that we both took part. I said, I was physically assaulted. And I go, by this fucking motherfucker right here. And he goes, fucking A, Cock, what the fuck? And I go, fuck you. They take us to the fucking shoe. I was out in like a day.
Not him.
No. He actually, he only had a few months left on his sentence. So he left. Anyway, so yeah, that was it. That was the only time anything really fucked up happened. So what happened is they put me back on after the thing when I'm in the shoe. They put me back on the yard. Okay, fine. I'm back on the yard. Sorry, the compound, whatever you want to call it, the prison. I go back to prison. Nobody bothers me. One guy says I can't walk the yard. I said, well, I'm going to go out there tonight and walk the yard. We'll see what happens. And I went out there and walked the yard with like three other guys, my cousin and like two other guys. We walked around. Guys got together. Little group of white guys get together, and they just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So nobody ever bothered me, right? Like we're not friends. So basically, a few months later, 2-3 weeks later, the FBI shows up. And they show up, and I get called into medical.
What agent? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, I remember. One of them was Agent Leslie. I forget her last name. No, Leslie Nelson. Super nice. Very,
you know her, Jim?
She's in Tampa. Really nice. She's not there anymore. I think she works like private investigator or something now. But she was there for like 20 years. She retired. Really nice person. Her and another guy showed up. And so they show up and they sit down and they have a conversation. They're like, hey, we're here to talk about what happened with this.
The politician.
Yeah, the politician. Yeah. And the one guy's like, what happened? How did it go about? And I was like, well, you guys already told you this when we talked before. Like, and so did all my co-defendants that already told them, because my co-defendants had all given them $500 a piece. So, they're like, okay, so we talk and I explain what happens. And the guy says, okay, well, his name was Michael. The politician's name was Kevin White.
Yeah.
And I go, right. And he said, we're running a scam in the name Michael White. I go, right. And he said, so the statute of limitations is up on the bribery charge. And I went, okay. He said, but you used money from the bank fraud charges to give to him in order to get him elected. And I went, right. And he goes, he is right. He said, so for instance, he said, we know you took $7,000 out this day, and he deposited $6,000 the next day. And your co-defendant, one of my co-defendants, had told him specifically they took the money out, gave it to me, and knew I was giving it to him. So they're like, so I'm like, right. And he goes, so nobody would believe if he said, like, if he knew about the bank fraud, and his name is Kevin Michael White, by the way. Kevin Michael White, and your guy's name is Michael White. He's like, I mean, nobody would believe that he wasn't involved. He said he must have been involved, right? And I was like,
and
no.
Like, I like where your head's going.
No, I didn't, because I'm still green as fuck. So I went, I looked at him, I said, no, I know, but it was just a coincidence. Like I said, it's, and he's looking at me like,
help me out, Cox.
More like, help me out. And he looked at me and he's like, yeah, but you understand that no jury would believe that. I said, I know, but it's just like coincidence.
Unless.
No, I didn't, because I wasn't, you understand, I just sat there because
still didn't.
My public defender continually told me, do not fucking lie to the FBI. Do not lie to the Secret Service. Do not lie to these people, because they don't want to give you anything. And they will do anything to justify not giving you something. So if you lie to them and they catch you in a lie, they won't give you anything. Do not lie to them.
That was good advice.
I felt like, listen, if I knew then what I knew now, I would have been, it was his idea. I'm surprised it took you this long. I wanted to go with Kevin, but he insisted to go with his middle name. Like, I would have buried that fucking guy.
Are you sure?
Yeah. But I didn't know any better. I was just stupid. Positive. I didn't know how they work. So anyway.
This was such a good idea, bringing you in.
Oh, my God.
So he leaves. So they leave. And it's funny, because when I went back and told my cousin, I said, yeah, he kept saying this and this and this. I said, I felt like he was like, you're a fucking retard. I was like, you're a fucking idiot. Are you stupid? And I was like, well, I don't understand. So anyway, what ends up happening is that Leslie Nelson comes back a couple weeks later. Now they're investigating my old fraud. So she starts bringing in boxes, and she starts coming like every month or so. And she comes like 5-6 times over the next 6 or 8 months. And then I get moved to the low. And then she comes back to the low. And I even told her, look, I don't think they're ever going to do anything. It's been so long. She goes, oh, they're going to do something. I said, no, I don't think so. But I said, I hear you. Let's work on it. I hope so. I said, but if they don't, you have to promise me you will write me a letter saying that you have recommended that I get a reduction. And she goes, I will write you that letter.
And it was just a verbal agreement with her.
Just a verbal agreement. And so at some point she comes back to me one day and she says, Matt, she showed up with nothing. I knew I was screwed. And I was like, what's up? And I said, what's going on? You don't have any files? And she was like, I talked to Robert Mazakowski and he said that the entire, the financial collapse, we're still prosecuting people for, $200 million, $300 million loans or more in mortgages and fraud and everything. Like your case is super old. And at this point, it's basically a historic case for us. And there's no reason why wouldn't we prosecute bad cases from a year ago, or as opposed to ones that are 4 and 5 years old.
Right.
And I was like, I understand. And she said, so we're not going to do anything. I'm so sorry about it. I said, you promised me that you would write me. And she pulled out the letter right then. She goes, I already wrote the letter.
That's cool.
And I looked at it and I said, can you do me a favor? Can you change? And I made a couple changes. I said, can you change this and this? She goes, tell me whatever you want me to change. Mail it to me. I'll mail you back. She said, you can keep this one.
Let's stand up.
She was super. Like
Did she do it? Did she send it back to you?
Absolutely. She made the changes.
Yeah.
Which were basically almost exactly what the Rule 35 said, that Mr. Cox has helped further the investigate. Like I knew what to say by now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Obviously that's.
Anyway, I'm at the low now. So I'm at the low and I start writing my own story.
Quick question on
Yes.
the low, because you already mentioned like some differences between low and medium, but what's the biggest day-to-day stuff at the low that makes it so much better than the medium?
It doesn't. It was horrible. I didn't want to go to the low at all. I was on a routine. I had a good routine going on.
There's no benefits?
I mean, there's better people. So it's boy, this is going to sound Rachel, but it's really not. If you had been anybody in prison would be like, yep, I get it. There's maybe 30 white guys at the medium, right? Like there's a few hundred white guys. So if you're 30 guys and there's 1,800 guys and 12 to 1,400 of them are black, and the rest are Hispanic. Yeah. Like you feel really uncomfortable. Like it's not a good situation.
Because in prison, the way you've explained it to me is each of the races like stick together.
Yes,
too. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Listen, not that once again, nobody gave me a hard time. Like all the black guys, super cool to me. Mexicans, super. The only people that gave me a hard time at all, really, the only time was the white guys. That's it.
So it wasn't that much of a benefit. Gotcha.
Right. So, but then I go to the low. So I go to the low, and I get there, and you don't have your own room. I mean, you have your own room, but it's like you don't have a cell where you can close the door. So it's loud all the time. And so there's cubes. There's no toilet. It's like you're using a public toilets and public, it sucks. And it's also, the medium was very clean because it's just me and my cellie that have to keep the toilet clean. We have to keep everything clean. We're cleaning at least once a day. You go there and these guys are pigs because nobody knows if you piss on the toilet. Nobody knows. You walked in, you pissed on the toilet, you pissed on the ground, whatever, you walk away. They don't clean it up. Well, they don't want to clean it up because they don't want to, one, clean theirs, but two, well, there's other splatter and there's other stuff from other guys. They don't want to deal with that. I'm not going to clean his, but you just pissed on the toilet or you just pissed on the urinal or on the wall or whatever. You're just listen, these guys are doing drugs. There's way more drugs there. So they're lunatics. They're falling around trying to go to the bathroom or puking or doing whatever. It's disgusting. So I get there, I go, I meet my counselor. He says, you owe $6 million in restitution. And I go, right. And he says, yeah, well, you're not on FRP refusal. Why aren't you? I said, man, listen, I said, I've been through this with Miss Bates, Mr. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so. I said, I don't have to pay. I said, you can look at my, thing. And I told him the same thing. He was, okay, I'll check it out. He said, your file hasn't gotten here yet. He just had the computer or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'll check it out. I was like, okay. And then maybe a week later, my case manager calls me in. And while I'm talking to her, she goes, "Why aren't you on FRP refusal? You have never made a payment." And I went, "I don't know." And just then my case manager walks in. And I said, his name is Mr. Smith. I go, "Ask Mr. Smith. He checked it out." He's checked what out? I said, "The fact that I don't have to pay restitution." He's like, yeah. I just got his file. Yeah, he doesn't have to pay restitution. He never underestimate the laziness of a government employee.
Oh, yeah.
That is the truth.
I'll wrap that up so that I don't have to keep going through this the whole time.
Right.
That went on until a couple months before I got out of
It's
prison.
amazing.
I've made one FRP payment the entire time in 13 years.
Wow.
One. Because, and by the way, multiple counselors, multiple unit managers, multiple case managers across the board. Never called.
I'm not surprised at that.
Me either.
No. So what ends up happening is I start writing my own story.
Well, but quick question. Did you, like, you get sentenced to 26 years. You're going to try to knock time off it. Obviously, we know you ended up doing that. But, like, you'd been in jail for a year leading up to your sentencing. Then you get to Coleman pretty quickly. Did you have a day, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it was in, where you're like, holy shit, like, this is going to take a while? Like, where it just kind of hits you? Like, it hit you in court. We know that. But, like, did it hit you when you were in there? Like, holy fuck, I can't get out of here?
So probably a few months before I get out or get moved from the medium to the medium. Well, I'm sorry. When the FBI agent, so I'd just been moved to the low. That's right. Mm-hmm. And that's right. So when she came and told me that they're not going to prosecute, but she gave me that letter, I ended up calling my lawyer, talking to her and saying, what's going on? At this point, so she basically says, Matt, I'm sorry. I've talked to Gail McKenzie. She's not going to reduce your sentence. They didn't prosecute the Secret Service didn't prosecute, and there were multiple people that the Secret Service could have prosecuted. They didn't prosecute, and the FBI isn't going to prosecute. There's nothing you can do. And I was just like, I mean, she's in tears. She's crying. I'm like, I'm done. What am I going to do? And what's so funny is that a few months after that, I got a letter from a TV show called American Greed. Mm-hmm. So American Greed said, we want to interview you. Oh my gosh. So I call I call my lawyer, and she says, hey, she'd like already gotten a call, or she called the U.S. attorney, Gail McKenzie, and Gail McKenzie said, hey, I got a letter from American Greed. They want to interview me. They want to interview you, and they want to interview Matt Cox. I want him to do it. We will consider it substantial assistance. She goes, you said that last time. She said, Millie, that's my lawyer's name. I know what I said before. It just wasn't enough, but the two of these together will be enough.
And I get to be on TV again.
Of course she does.
Was it CNBC?
Yeah, it was on CNBC.
Yeah.
CNBC.
I didn't actually watch it, but there was one time in college, obviously long before I knew you,
right,
where that was on in the background. Like, I remember that.
That episode?
Yes.
Because we had Solomon Dweck too.
I definitely did it. I was not active. Yeah. It was like on the TV because we'd have the TV on in the room.
You know what's amazing though? I love that agent for standing up, for being a stand-up person, but that's pure. That whole process is pure laziness, not to follow through,
right,
and to just get you closed out. Whatever it looked like needed to be closed at that time. It needed to be closed. It should have never dragged on beyond where she must have had a knockdown drag out U.S. Attorney's office, because they were like, we're not. Oh, we now have $300 million cases, so we're just going to let a case float. Right. That's bullshit. That's a lazy assistant United States attorney. That's what it is.
And it's not like you don't have the paperwork. It's not like you didn't have everybody had cooperated.
It's easy. It's an easy close.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is,
I hate that shit. Really do.
She says, do American Greed. So my judge actually wrote a letter to the warden asking him to let the cameras in.
Because you're in federal, yeah.
And the warden said, no, absolutely not. He can do a telephone interview. Mm. So I do a telephone. They still played it. Like they still, it wouldn't have mattered if I'd been on film.
Right.
So I do the interview on the, on the 2 days, go to the warden's office, do a whole thing. They use all of maybe 3 minutes of it. They interview Gail McKenzie. They interview the Secret Service agent. You know, they make me, I always will say this. I'm not even going to say this anymore. I'm going to say they make me look bad. They're about 99% accurate. But you know, that 1% upsets me. I didn't like some of their adjectives. But they were fairly accurate. There was 1 or 2 things that were said that it was like, okay, that's not exactly what happened.
What was that?
It's stupid stuff. Like what happened was I had convinced a doctor and his wife to own or finance a house. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I give them $25,000 down to own or finance a house for like $250,000. They had a sick child, right? That needed to have like a surgery or something. Well, they were the Browns. It was Dr. Brown. Well, I think her name was Bridget. Bridget Brown says on the TV show that Mr. Cox knew that we had a sick child, a terminally ill sick child, which did not die. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess maybe she hadn't had the surgery or something, but he didn't die. He had to have a few surgeries, and said that Mr. Cox knew we had a sick child, and he targeted us and put us in financial strain, right? That wasn't true. They technically didn't. Now they'll say they lost $12,000, but they don't count the fact that I gave them $25,000. I gave them $25,000. They then got the house back, resold it, got another $25,000. So if you do the numbers, they didn't lose it. They didn't lose any money. But that's not the point. The point is
the
that
story they need to tie it together.
I get it, and I get it. Like it's like I've said, it's me arguing. They're saying I killed 15 people, and I'm saying I only killed 13.
Right.
You're still a scumbag.
Right.
So it's not a good argument for me. But the point is that what she's saying is that I knew she had a sick child. I never went upstairs to the house. I walked in the house, walked downstairs, looked up staircase, said, let's put a contract in on it. We put a contract on like 3 houses that day. I'm just trying to get somebody to finance their house. I don't know anything about you. I met them the day of the closing, signed some paperwork. I don't even know if they have kids, right? Like, I mean, I guess I assumed they had some kids, but I don't know if they're sick kids. I don't know anything about it. But they always want to make it look worse than it is.
It sells too.
Yeah,
It sells the story.
And, and I get it. I understand, but it's like, what I did was bad enough. I don't need you to make it worse.
Right.
I promise you, I will get enough time. Like, you don't have to make, well, I'm afraid he's going to get a slap on the wrist, so I'm going to lie.
Well, you're already in prison at this point,
right.
too.
No. This is, yes, but that was a common theme. Really, I think it was pushed by the U.S. Attorney.
Of course it was.
So, and keep in mind, this is a woman that said I had a machine gun. Never had it. She knew I didn't have a machine gun. She knew I didn't have a gun. She told the judge I had a machine gun. I had a gun. All kinds of things, which is just lies. We'd been burglarized. Like we had that. Remember the home invasion? I had a home.
Did you tell that story on the podcast?
Yeah, we had a home invasion.
Yes.
So I had a home invasion, and when I filled out the homeowner's insurance report, I was trying to maximize the amount of money I could get on my homeowners, right? So they were like, "Did you have any guns?" Like they'll give you up to like $2,500 in guns. So we put like
machine gun.
Yeah, we put like AR-15 or something. We put like this, and then she gets in
artillery pieces.
Right, she gets in there and says, and she asked me like, where did you buy the gun? I said, I don't have a gun. And I said, you can ask. I said, no, we just did that because we were trying to, like I said, I had 2 computers. I said I had like all these things I didn't have. And I was like, no, we were just trying to get the most we could get from the insurance money. And she's like, oh, okay. I said, you can ask Amanda. We never had a gun. I never had any. There's no AR-15. There's no, or whatever the gun was that we said we had. We never had one. She gets in front of the judge and says, Mr. Cox had a machine gun. He had us like, what the and I'm like hitting my lawyer, like, what the, and she's like, don't say anything. Don't say anything. You don't want to say anything. So,
Your Honor, that was a lie.
It just
That was another kind of fraud.
By the way, can I get my Babe Ruth ball back?
Just-
Did you get that?
blatantly lying. So
It's terrible.
anyway, the point is that they do the American Greed. The American Greed comes out. When it comes out, I'm calling my lawyer. I'm calling Millie. Hey, what's going on? Are they going to reduce my sentence?
Am I getting credit for this?
Right. They said they'd give me substantial assistance. And I even had a letter. I had an email from the U.S. Attorney to Millie that said, Mr. Cox, we will consider this substantial assistance and we will reduce the
There
sentence.
it is. Yeah.
Okay. So Millie, after about 3 months. Oh, and by the way, the guy. So she goes to Millie goes to the U.S. attorney, catches up with her in an elevator, and says, "Here's what happened. What's going on? It came out. You said you'd reduce the sentence." She said, "I said I would consider it, and I did, and it's not enough."
Oh my God.
Again.
So about the same time that's happening, I get contacted by a guy named Jim Montrum. He owns the National Loan Origination School, mortgage school. So the Dodd-Frank Act said that all mortgage brokers in the United States have to take 9 hours of continuing education courses. 3 hours of that is on ethics and fraud. He came to me and he said, "Look, you're one of the only people out there that committed bank fraud on a large scale, and you've committed fraud on and there's like 8 types of bank fraud, let's say 6, I think. You've hit every single one of these you've done personally, and you are a licensed mortgage broker. I'd like to have you help me write this course." I said, "Okay. Can you call my lawyer?" Great. Calls my lawyer. He flies up to Atlanta. I think he drove up to Atlanta, met with my lawyer and the U.S. attorney, and she said, "Absolutely, if Mr. Cox does this, we'll reduce his sentence." So I write a 9,500 word course. It starts getting used. I've got my ex-wife. I'm calling my ex-wife. She's like, I get calls like every week or so from people saying, "I just took the mortgage class, and it's your ex-husband, there's a whole portion of it that you wrote." People are saying left and right. So I'm like, oh my God, this is great. Several people write letters. Jim Montrum writes a letter. Millie schedules an appointment with the U.S. attorney, goes in, puts the letter down, says, boom, they're using it. It's great. It's wonderful. Here's a 2-page letter from Jim Montrum. Here's several of his students that have said what a great thing it is here. And she says, "Millie, it's just not enough." So
It's just bad ethics.
right. So at this point, I'm writing my book. I'm in the middle of writing a memoir. Right.
Had you written before, like in your life at all?
I had written earlier when I was, but I'd like written like a novel. I wrote like a novel.
That's right. And it was like kind of right.
Yeah. But I threw it in the drawer. I never tried to get it published. It was just something to do, right? Like fraud is not a full-time job, right? I need something to do. So I like writing. It was kind of like a Jim Grisham kind of thing.
Because, by the way, because now you are a published author. I mean, you're going to explain how all this happened. But how many books have you published now since you got out?
Not since I got out. I think I published like 5 when I was in, and maybe 2 or 3 since I got out. 3 since I got out.
Okay.
So
and
what
they're
is that,
available
like
on Amazon.
8? Something like 6 or 8 books.
I'll put the link down in the description. Matthew Cox on Amazon. We're going to talk about some of the guys you wrote, because you wrote about. I mean, you wrote the book that became the basis of War Dogs, which we're definitely going to talk about.
So anyway,
Okay.
not exactly what happened, but yes, I wrote Ephraim Deveroli's memoir, which is who Jonah Hill plays in the movie War Dogs.
Right.
Sued Warner Brothers, sued Ephraim Deveroli. That in and of itself, by the way, is a book.
Didn't you settle that in a strip club or something?
We did We settled the lawsuit in the Pink Pony in Miami.
Love that.
I'm sure you know the Pink Pony.
Leslie's been there a few times.
He's
like a big god guy.
As a matter of fact, I wrote a book about the lawsuit called "Dude, Where's My Hand Grenade?" and it's on Amazon.
Link in description.
Hilarious. I'm trying to get Danny right now to do a sizzle reel.
We'll talk to him.
Yeah,
he's got to do it. Yeah.
Oh, he's got
he's got to do it.
It's. Listen, we got almost everybody lined up. Dude, where's my hand grenade?
Yeah, I miss Danny making, and I didn't know him when he was doing this, but like if you watch the shit he made, he's so talented at that,
he's super
bro.
talented.
Oh my God. I'd love to see him get back, but he's just he works so hard on all this other shit.
Because those are the real people. That's the real Ephraim Deveroli. That's the real Packhouse.
Yep.
As opposed to the movie. So
crazy. So you're right. You were saying you started writing your memoir a little bit.
So I started writing my memoir, and now at this point, I've been locked up 6 years, and I realize they're not going to reduce my sentence. No matter what I do, they're not going to reduce it.
Is your attorney? Is it still the same attorney?
Yeah,
still Millie. And is she trying to?
So here's the problem.
Pursue this?
No, because here's why. She's in the 11th Circuit. She's been turned. In the 11th Circuit, like you said, it's horrible. Mm-hmm. It's horrific. If I had been somewhere in California, they're pretty liberal. Like they'll go, oh, that's not right. We need to reduce his sentence. But
You're in Florida.
I'm in Florida, and it's very, very, I don't want to say backwoods, good old boy kind of like, nope.
Yep.
Very, very tough on crime, to the point of not following the law. So what happens is, I eventually, I'm so frustrated. I don't know what to do. And at this point, it's like, okay, they're not going to reduce your sentence, and nobody's getting arrested. Because, by the way, that remember the politician?
Yeah. Kevin.
They indict him.
He went to prison? He did.
Yeah, but
they went through with it.
But not on mine. They indicted him because he was that guy that I told you was telling me, hey, bro, wink, wink. He was actually in the middle of a case against him. And he indicts him on bribery. And Kevin White goes to trial like an idiot and loses and gets 3 years. Yeah. And but they never call me. Like, you could have called me to say, this is what happened in my case. Or the statute of limitations is up, but here's what happened. Never called me.
That's interesting.
I'm sure there's a reason that a technical reason that I don't understand, but I felt like they could have done something.
Yeah, maybe
Do you
because
think-
it's outside the statute, but it is continuing, kind of a continuing scheme on his part. He's already predicated on that portion of it. So
maybe if they
there's
had
a chance that they should have wanted to, but they didn't.
I agree with you. They should have, but they didn't.
Maybe I know nothing about the case, so I can't really say, yeah, we'll put him in the corner of the screen. But maybe if they thought they had such an airtight case on the latest charge they were working on with him, they wouldn't want to bring in a convicted fraudster as a witness for fear of being like ripped. You know what I mean?
Possible.
Is that possible?
But even continuing behavior,
Yeah, I was just say, listen.
on the indictment phase, at least at some portion. Yeah, I mean, once he's indicted and goes to try and chooses to go to trial, what an idiot, by the way.
It's pretty.
But whatever.
It's pretty hard to dispute Mr. Red's check, Mr. Green's check, Mr. Silver's check, Mr. Blue's check, Mr. Black's check. My mom, my dad, all of my co-defendants who have all said I never met the guy. Matt was bribing him. Every single one was like, no, Matt was bribing the guy to get all his properties
What did he do?
rezoned.
Same type of situation here. Same.
Yes, he was
Or was it-
promising. He was promising someone that he could get them the Hillsborough County rights for towing. He has nothing to do with towing, but he had a tow truck company that he was saying, like, I can get you the tow truck contract for Hillsborough County.
Wow.
And they
Which
gave him
is-
they gave him a car. They gave him bought thousands of dollars.
Free toes.
Thousands of dollars.
If you ever get stuck, we'll tow you out.
Bought him a bunch of dinners, gave his father a bunch of stuff, just across the board, just stupidity. Oh, and then he got sued a second time for sexual harassment. Like, he hired this young Puerto Rican girl, and then
So it went from towing to fingering.
right, and then he starts. Yeah, he like brings her on.
He's a man of all.
Brings her on like a
Good. That was good.
what does he bring her on? He brings her on like a junket or something. He shows up at her room at 2:00 in the morning and says,
Let's go on a junket.
at 2:00 in the morning, and he said, he's an only child. No, he's an only child. No. He had siblings or something. He doesn't like to sleep alone. Could he just lay down with her and sleep with her? It's like you're like
beautiful.
You're a 40-year-old man. This is like a 22-year-old girl that's not qualified to be a secretary, by the way.
Kids, it's not hard to make it in America, apparently. I mean, Christ, it doesn't take too many brain cells.
Run for office.
Listen,
God
then
damn.
he became
That's benefits.
after he got out of jail, he got a job as a car salesman and worked with my ex-wife's husband.
He became a car salesman. That's
He was a car
so
salesman
perfect.
before he was a car salesman too.
Oh my god.
No, at least he's
So-
sticking to his roots.
Car salesman, city council,
Yeah.
county commissioner,
He's a
Oh,
commissioner.
shit, he got up.
which
bribing his way through that, and eventually
Wow.
goes to jail, gets out, becomes a car salesman again. So
Wow.
anyway, so at this point, I know they're not going to reduce my sentence. So I go and I talk to a friend of mine, and say, hey, what can I do? Like, I talked to, by the way, you know who T.I. is?
Yeah, the rapper?
Yeah.
Tip
So I
Harris?
actually talked to his lawyer.
Interesting.
So I talked to his lawyer and told him the situation, and he said, "There's nothing you can do." I talked to a lawyer who was an ex-prosecutor in Tampa, and he said, "There's nothing you can do. You're just done. In this district, you're done." It's not. They were like, first of all, I could take your money. I'll go through the motions. It's gonna. But if I don't think I can, he said, like, and I'm not above taking your money and trying if I thought maybe there was a chance. Mr. Cox, there's no chance. That's it. Done. You're done. Okay, fine. So there was a guy on the compound named Frank Amodeo.
Oh, here we go, baby. You know about Frank, Jim?
Frank Amodeo.
Buckle up.
Frank Amodeo was a disbarred attorney. Frank Amodeo was in prison for 22 years because when Frank Amodeo was 11, 12, 13 years old, he started hearing the voice of God telling him that he is preordained to be emperor of the world. He is a rapid cycling bipolar with features of schizophrenia.
He's like 5'4", 5'5".
Yeah, he's like 5'4", 5'5".
Yeah, little man syndrome.
No, more like mental illness. Not. Yeah. That's his website, bro. You got to just go to punch in Frank Amodeo and put. There's a ton of stuff that should come up.
See if there's
don't put attorney. Just put Frank Amodeo. Put world domination.
Frank Amato. It's Amodeo, not Amato.
Yeah.
Amodeo. DEO. All right. Yeah. All right. We'll come back to it. So anyway,
you actually had it spelled right. Yeah, there it is, right there.
See the
second one
thumbnail
down
with him.
Right here?
No. To the right.
You don't see the helicopter?
Yeah. Come on.
Right. That. So however you spell Amodeo, there it's AME or
there's an O in the middle.
ADEO.
Yeah.
Amodeo. Yeah. So type that in, you'll see.
So this guy's sitting in there on a 22-year stint.
Right. So what happened was, so he gets disbarred. He becomes, he goes to college, goes to law school, starts running a business, gets disbarred. He ends up becoming a venture capitalist, taking over companies, and then he starts. Basically, he ends up buying and opening several of the companies are employee leasing companies, right? You know what that is?
I don't think so.
So let's say you buy a factory and you got 10,000 employees. Well, he'll do all of your payroll. So he basically leases your own employees back to you, but he takes them. And that way he ends up with a company that ends up with 20 or 30,000 employees. He gets really good HMOs, whatever, medical. He gets all these discounts, right? Well, what he does is he starts doing that for all of his own companies that he's buying, and he starts withholding the payroll taxes for the federal government to the tune of over $180 million.
Oh, that'll do it.
He uses that money to bankroll a coup in the Congo.
Why the Congo?
The Congo is the largest. It has the largest natural mineral resources in the world: diamonds, gold. What is that metal that goes into phones? All that stuff. But the problem is you can't get to it because they've been at war for 50 years. They tried to put it a coup. He backs his own candidate. His candidate went from number 30 to number 3 before the military came in and grabbed all of Frank's guys. They grabbed like 32 guys, and they hold him for whatever. For 9 days. He negotiates. He's also, by the way, was trying to buy a fleet of F-15s and F-16s. They declaw them. They take the guts out of them. You can buy them, fly them to Cyprus, and Russians will put all the shit back in them. Listen,
We got this.
Yeah, he's insane. He's amazing though. He's also amazing.
He's obviously a brilliant man.
He is brilliant. That's how I met Bustamante, because I wrote a book about Frank. But let's go back. So I meet Frank. Here's the problem with Frank.
That's great.
The problem with Frank is that he is a lawyer. So when he gets locked up, he starts representing clients inside the prison.
But he's a disbarred lawyer.
Well, my buddy Pete does legal work. He's never been to law school. You don't have to be like inmates are allowed to help other inmates with lawyers. So the problem is that he's a real lawyer. He's disbarred. He's still a lawyer. He's just disbarred. Yeah. You see, he has a law degree. So the first thing he does is listen to what he does. This fucking guy, man. This is so.
By the way, that's your book on him. We'll have that link in description. It's Insanity: The Bizarre Story of a Bipolar Megalomaniac's Insane Plan for Total World Domination by Matthew B. Cox.
Good stuff. It's so. That needs
a movie.
It does, and you know why? Here's what's so funny about that is that this is a guy. He's not pretending. By the way, he's not. It's not like it's something that he doesn't tell anybody. He tells everybody he's going to take over the world, and actively people laugh and they joke. He'll laugh and joke about it. And when I interviewed some of his co-defendants, I'm like, well, he laughs and jokes about it, and I was like, so it's not serious, and they would go, no, he's 100% serious.
You know that fucking Kevin, the dude you ran into. Our mutual friend, the guy you ran into in, I think, the Caribbean. You know, I don't want to name drop right now. You know who I'm talking about. The dude from the show.
I'm going to need more than the dude from the show. Huh?
You were talking to Danny about it?
Kevin?
Don't worry about it. Okay. I think Kevin would look at this to make something out of that. I mean, this guy's story? Are you fucking kidding me?
I've pitched it to 2 or 3 people. The problem is that it's a big, look, the point is, what Amodeo does is he immediately starts teaching what's called it's the legal research class. So he starts training inmates on how to fight cases, how to do legal research on the computers and write motions and how the legal system works. Big mistake for the court system.
Oh yeah.
He also, this is an odd thing that he did. He would sign his name. So he would say that he wrote the motion. He's helping you, and so literally there are federal judges that would talk about Mr. Amodeo in their cases. I know that Mr. Amodeo wrote this thing, and Mr. Amodeo is saying this, and it's like, what are you talking about? He's the inmate. Like, that's the defendant. He's talking about Amodeo like he's your lawyer.
Yeah.
So what was
he doing to get back? Was he getting paid for it, like in prison?
No, never offered.
Just world domination.
Listen,
it is. Not only be named by every federal judge in America.
Yeah, he did want to be hated by every.
There you go.
Not only did he not charge me, he paid for my stamps. He paid for the typing. I paid for nothing. So I go to Amodeo. I explain that. So here's the problem. I wasn't going to go to him. You understand that I've been there for years now. I've been at the low for years. I wasn't going to go to him because he's insane. And everybody's like, this dude's nuts, bro. This guy's really crazy. Yeah. He has these manic moments where he would go nuts. He's 5'4" and he's screaming at 6 foot tall gang members. And it's like, you're crazy. You're going to be dead. Like, I'm surprised he lasted as long as he did, because the truth is, but think about it. He's doing your legal work.
Yeah.
I could pretty much talk to you like a dog if I'm your only hope. And the worst thing is, for these guys, Frank's walking people out of federal prison. Guys have 30 years. You've done 15. He takes your case on. It's done. Nobody can help you. He takes your case on. 6 months later, boom, you get walked out of federal prison.
Instant credibility.
Listen, and we're talking about he's also doing it on a massive scale. So I'm going to say once a month. It may have been every 2 weeks, but what would happen is suddenly guys would come up to me and like, bro, you know Pookie? Like, yeah, there's 10 Pookies. Yeah, which one? You know Pookie from fucking Atlanta? Yeah. With the curly hair. Yeah. With the shave that we have with the goatee. Yeah. Look, and I'd go, what about him? He'd go, Frank just got 10 years knocked off his sentence. He's lived for a halfway house in 6 months. I get the fuck out of here. Are you serious?
You gotta talk to Frank.
He'd go, yeah. Next thing you know, boom. You know so-and-so? Yeah, immediate release. A month later, hey, Cox. You know so-and-so? You know Jimmy? Yeah. What about him? You know, 25 years? Right.
13.
Did 10, just got 10. He's leaving in 2 years. They're putting him in for halfway house in a year. It's like, what? How? What happened? Frank, bro. So at this point, when my lawyers and all these lawyers on the street say, you're done, I go to my buddy, Turk, and I say, man, you work with Frank, right? And he's like, I've been telling you. You got to talk to Frank. I'm like, the guy thinks he's going to take over the world, bro. He's like, look, stop it. It doesn't affect his legal work.
His
So-
legal work is outstanding.
It is.
It's
so
the F-16s with no guts. That's the problem.
They would have had guts eventually. If Frank had his way.
We will give them guts.
Listen, if Frank had his way, he'd have all of Africa by now. He'd
Yeah,
be
once
working
he
his
made
way
it to
through Europe.
Sudan, he'd be good.
So he comes. So Frank comes. Do you see all these podcasts on him? All the podcasts.
Danny did one?
Yeah, Danny.
yeah.
Well, he did. That's Matt with Danny. That was a Matt podcast. It's
Okay.
a good one.
Liz, did you see that one guy up here? The
at that
mad,
crazy man.
mad, whatever his name is. He's got like 1 million views on his with Frank.
I mean, it's such a sellable story. I always told Danny because like this thumbnail he made was fucking awesome. I always wondered why the episode just did well, but not incredibly well.
Right.
Because it's a great episode. Highly recommend. But yeah, anyway.
So-
So you start talking. You go to
So
Frank.
we go to Frank, and I'm just going to tell you what happens with Frank. Frank says, so I explained to Frank what's happened. They asked me to do this. They said it's not enough. They asked me to do this. They said it's not enough. They asked me to do this. They said it's not enough. And Frank sat there and he said, I'm not going to let this happen. I'm not going to let this happen. He said, this makes me so upset. He said, when my troops march on Washington, I'm going to burn the Constitution and the president will kneel at my feet. And I glance over at Turk, and Turk's looking at me like this, like, calm. Just give it a second. And he goes, and Frank goes, I'm going to need your transcripts. I'm going to need your indictment. I'm going to need. And Turk sits there and just starts writing down transcripts, indictment, motion, such and such, pre-sentence report. Okay, I'm going to need a form 2255, form 2255. And I'm like, okay, well, so you're going to file. There's something called there's a motion called it's a specific performance motion you can file. And I said, so you're going to file a specific performance? And he goes, no, we're going to file 2255. Now, keep in mind, in a criminal case, after sentencing, you have 1 year to file a 2255, which is you're saying your lawyer was ineffective.
Yes.
Yeah.
We just covered this. I just did a case about my friend Tyree Wallace, who's in prison for life right now for a crime he didn't commit.
And he turns to the sheriff and says, hey, I got a question for you. And the sheriff, I think, says, what's that? And he says, what's the penalty for perjury? One of my homies is on trial. He didn't do it. They made me say that. I didn't want to say that.
And do we know, have we seen this? Do we know who the sheriff is?
Yeah.
What's his name?
John Hamilton.
The sheriff was relaying, Brian said that this wasn't true. And so they let Brian get back on the stand to say what he said to the sheriff.
Pretty damn credible. Now, I have someone here who I think could help clear this up a little bit, and I'd like to bring him in if you don't mind. So we're going to have to move that table in a sec. But Alessi, can you bring him in? And one of the huge problems that they had with his case is that his lawyer was completely incompetent. The lawyer's now dead, and they only had a year back then, and he was a 19-year-old kid who had no idea about anything,
right.
and they didn't file that.
Yeah, that's some bullshit.
Fucking crazy, man.
Bill Clinton. You can thank Bill Clinton for that. So what ends up happening is I say, Frank was sentenced 6 years ago. I said, he goes, oh, no. He said, equitable tolling, though. He said, every time they asked you to do something, he said,
agreement should have been put in place. Yeah.
he said it extends. And I'm sitting there going, and by the way,
It's not a bad argument.
in the 11th, though, in the 11th Circuit again, never works.
Right.
Everywhere
else
it would work. And also they have certain things
That's
that they'll
interesting.
say will work. So they said every time they asked you to do something, you did it and they fell through, it reset your 1 year. And he goes, when was the last time they asked you to do something? And I was like 6 months ago. And he was like, okay, so I need you to write a letter to them asking them, so we go through a whole process. He starts writing the motion. It was agony, by the way, because he's always putting you off and spinning you and spinning. It was agony to deal with him. But 6 months later, he finally files just before, right? Just before the 1 year would have been over. That's assuming that you really can get the time bar, right? Like if you can really get equitable tolling, which in the 11th, it just doesn't work. But it doesn't matter because he filed it. They fought. We went back, forth. Went on for 6 months.
Surprised it only took that long if you're going back and forth
Might
much.
have been 8 months.
Still, that's fast for the federal government. Shit.
At some point, the U.S. attorney files a Rule 35 and says, when it doesn't file Rule 35, says they want to stay. They want to stay on the motion. They want to stay on the proceedings because they want to file a Rule 35, bring me back to court, and let me argue for how much I deserve. Because she said the problem is, and she said this in the court, the problem is we really don't have a precedence. We typically never give Rule 35s. We never give sentence reductions unless there's been someone has been arrested and indicted, or indicted, arrested, and prosecuted.
That is a hell of a read on that rule, man.
I'm
Holy shit.
Yeah, I'm with you. So
I know you are.
So they give me a lawyer. The lawyer flies down. Her name was Esther Panich, nice woman. Flew down and she sat there and came and said, okay, look, she's like, I see you've been filing these motions. She said, look, they're written well, but you really don't have much of a case. Like in the end, you're probably not going to get equitable tolling. You're going to be time barred. You're not going to get anything. They're offering you 1 year. I'm sorry, they're offering you a 1 level reduction, which is essentially like 30 months off your sentence. And I went, I said, no, I want 4 levels. I said, I was told to argue for 4 levels. And she was, by who? I go, by this guy, Frank Amodeo. He's been writing my legal work. She says, you didn't do this? I said, no. I said, Frank did. She says, is Frank a lawyer? And I went, he's a disbarred lawyer. She says, is he in here? I went, yeah. And she said, why is he locked up? And I go, because for world domination, he wants to take over the world. I said he embezzled nearly $200 million from the federal government. He tried to take over a fucking couple of countries. I said he's buying jets. I said he's insane. I said, but he does great legal work. And Frank said,
excellent attorney, though. Excellent attorney.
I said, and Frank said that not to take less than 4 levels. And she goes, Frank, the guy who's mentally
take over the world,
mentally incompetent. And I went,
yes, that one.
Legally incompetent, yes. And she went, and you're going to listen to him? I said, yeah. I said, because I said, whenever I call you people, you say not to file anything. She says, well, you can't win this. I go, then why are you here? Why did the federal government stop the proceedings, hire you to fly down here and ask me to take 1 level? Because what he's doing is working. And I said, and what you and everybody else out there would have done would have said, stay in prison. I said, as far as I'm concerned, Frank's already got 30 months off my sentence. I said, he said 4 levels, not to take less than 4 levels.
Not 2, not 3,
right.
4.
So she goes, okay, I'll go back. And she goes back and we argue a little bit. And finally she says, like, they come back, they say, we'll give you 2, we'll give you this. And finally they said, look, we can give you 2 or we can bring you, the U.S. Attorney, Gail McKenzie, said, you can take 2 or you can come back and argue. That's it. You take 2, we just file it, you stay in Coleman, you don't get to come back. That means it's guaranteed 2 levels off, which would have been 4 years, maybe 4.5, something like that. Maybe 5 years. So I go, and I talked to Frank. Frank comes back and Frank said, go back in front of the judge. He said that your judge will give you a fair shake. I said, okay. So I tell her, I want to go back.
You just believed him on that. Bro, even after your experience with
I got people flying down. Nobody's given me anything before. Of course I believe him. I believe if Frank said jump off, you'll be fine. Jump off the building, you'll be fine. I probably would have said, I don't know, I got a chance. I mean, this guy's getting me.
He's only got schizophrenia, but I got a chance.
He's getting me somewhere. So listen, I end up going back to court. We get in front of the judge. We argue it. The FBI agent comes and testifies. Mr. Cox cooperated. It's not his fault that we didn't pursue.
The woman.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I like it.
I have no doubt that the U.S. Attorney's Office was irritated that she'd even given me that letter, which she shouldn't have given me. So I go back. We argue. My lawyer argues. Jim Montrum, the guy that I wrote the course with, he comes. He sits down. Did a fairly good job. It always cracks me up because at one point, the U.S. attorney, he was like, people do bad things. People make mistakes. There's a lot of fraud in the industry. People change a W-2, a pay stub. They do this, they do that. And the U.S. attorney said, so you're telling me that it's common for people to make fake people, buy houses, refinance them 5 times, pull out $1 million and walk away? And he goes, oh, no. He was way out of line.
That's not what I was saying.
And I thought, true, but not the response I would have liked.
Didn't want that there.
So what's so funny is when the judge gave me my sentence, when he reduced my sentence, he goes like this. He said, okay, oh, by the way, we asked for like 8 levels.
Oh, you asked for 8?
Yeah.
I didn't even know you could go to 8.
Oh, you could ask for 50 if you want. But anyway, we asked for like 8, which would have been like immediate release.
Now, did this judge give you anything for the front of a book?
For what?
Did he give you a quote that's
No,
good for the front of a book?
I already had that quote.
This isn't a
That's
new.
Leslie Nelson.
This isn't a new judge this time.
No, this is my
Same judge?
You always stick with the same judge.
Oh shit!
Wow.
Yeah, we'll put the FBI agent in the corner of the screen.
She was very nice, very nice, super polite, very nice, absolutely extremely professional person.
You got to get her on your pod.
I should get her on,
You
but
should.
she's a wealth of information.
What is she doing? Can you check her LinkedIn real quick?
What's she doing right now? And she was out at the Tampa office, you said?
I guess she does.
All right.
like, she's a private investigator of some type, I think, right?
United
No?
Democracy Center. Just recently, though. And then she had her own business.
Arcus Investigative Group.
She had her own business there. A couple
Gotcha.
of them.
Okay, so 23 years in the bureau.
Oh, wow. She came in right around me.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what happens is they take me there, we argue the whole thing. And after we make the argument, the judge says, okay, Mr. Cox is offering, let's say it was 6 levels off. He goes, the government is asking for, by the way, when they got there, they told me when they were not going to make an argument for anything. They were going to say, we're putting in 1 level, that's it. But they argued for 1 level. He only deserves, nobody was indicted. So anyway, they say that the government is asking for 30 months off your sentence. Mr. Cox is asking, he said, that's not nearly enough for what this defendant has done. He said, Mr. Cox was asking for 6 levels off. He goes, Mr. Cox, that was never going to happen. I was like, it was like, oh my God. It was like he slapped me. And so so what ends up happening is, how's my hair? Oh, it's fine.
Hair
So
looks great.
So he ends up,
Hair jokes. Just killing me.
So he ends up, so he goes, he rambles off all this, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to give 3 levels off, which is 7 years. He said, and for somebody who has no indictments associated with this case, Mr. Cox, that's not a bad deal. And he got up and left, and that was it. And I remember I was upset, right? Oh, by the way, Millie, my first lawyer, she also got on the stand and testified. And I filed my 2255 against her, saying she was ineffective. She didn't understand the law. She didn't know what she was doing. She still came and said, I want to testify. Got on the stand and said, Mr. Cox has done.
That's pretty cool.
Listen, everybody across the board, decent. Everybody on my side. It was great, right? For somebody who certainly doesn't deserve it.
So you get from 20, now you're down to 19.
19 and a half. Yeah, 19. Let's just say 19. 19, 4 months, but whatever. Let's say 19. So what happens is I remember when I was leaving, like I'm walking out the marshals, right? I'm walking out of the thing. And I look across the street because they didn't have it at the building in downtown Atlanta. The judges, there was some construction. They had it at another area. So when I'm walking across the street, I see Millie getting into her car. And she was like super sad that I only got 7 years off, right? And she looks over at me, and I remember looking at her and going, she was like this, and I go, it's fine. Like she was like, so I get in the car, right? I get in the van. They drive me back to the U.S. Marshals holdover. They move me all the way back. I get back to prison. I go back to prison. I've been there. Like I get there. I think I got there in the morning or something, whatever. And then, then you go to dinner, we eat. Or I got there halfway through the day, just before 5 now that I think about it, just before count. So I get out after count, I go eat, and then I go and I find Frank. And I go up to Frank and I said, hey, Frank, I said, I got back. He said, I know, I heard. He said, I heard you got 7 years off. And I went, right. And I said, man, I said, I don't want to be unappreciative. I said, but man, I said, I was hoping for more. He goes, I was hoping for more too. He sat there, he went, I really thought you'd get more. And he goes, looks like we're going to have to eat this elephant 1 spoonful at a time. He said, keep your ears open. Something will happen. He said, we'll get some more time off your sentence.
Did you know what he meant by that?
No, I don't think he knew. I think he was just saying something comforting. He's just being
Let's get the Jets.
He's trying to be comforting. He Look, what was interesting about that whole thing was that by that point it had been 7 years. I'd been locked up like, let's say, yeah, about 6 years. By that point, by the time I actually got my sentence, I'd been locked up about 6 years, maybe 7, about 7 years. Let's say 7 years. And I remember thinking, I had about 7, maybe 7 or 8 more years left. Let's say. I got the math wrong, but whatever. I remember I had about the same amount of time left, right? So I've got, whatever, 16 more years left, whatever. I'd done 8, and I have like 8 more, whatever it ends up coming to. And I remember thinking, you didn't think you could do 8 when you got here. You did it. You can do another 8. Like, it sucks, but you can do it. You're writing guys' books. By that time, I had written Ephraim DeVaroli's book.
Oh, this is already done now.
Yeah, it's been. Think about it. When these court cases, they said like a year.
Yeah.
He filed it 6 months before we got that. They came back, and then it was another 6 months before I ended up back in court because we had to go back and forth. So it's a year.
And we'll come back to Ephraim, but
Right.
keep going with this part.
Right. So, now I'm right. I wrote a kid. By that point, I'd written a kid's book named Doug Dodd. I got him in Rolling Stone magazine. Right. It was a book. It was called The Dukes of Oxy.
It's a good name. Matt's good with like the salacious names.
No, I didn't name it The Dukes of Oxy. I wrote a book. What I wrote was a synopsis called Oxy Rush. I sent it to a bunch of reporters. I got one that was interested. He then took that article, slightly rewrote it, and called it his, and sent it to Rolling Stone magazine and had it published in Rolling Stone magazine. Said that my name was going to be on it, and a couple of weeks before they published it, told me Rolling Stone magazine didn't want to have that article, my name on the article, because I was a felon and I was in prison, and they didn't want to be associated with me. I found out later, after talking to Sean Woods, which was the editor at the time, my name was never on that article. Now, my name's in the article. If you actually look down a little bit, this is the Dukes of Oxy. That's the kid. I'm actually in the article. Like, they talk about how he sent his prison. He says like he and Doug Dodd and his prison writing partner or something like that, and ended up sending this guy the thing. But yeah. So what happens is I end up getting a book deal for that. So I ended up writing a book called Generation Oxy. And so we optioned the film rights to the story.
Wait, you get a book deal while still in prison, so it's going to get published while you're in prison.
Yeah, it was published. It was in Barnes and Nobles. It was like a real, like I got an advance. Like, I got $3,500. Like, that's a lot of money in prison. In prison,
you're balling.
So so I got that, and that was great. And then we optioned the film rights, so I got a check for like $6 or $7 grand, something like that, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
What ends up happening is, so I get back to prison, and Frank says something will happen. We'll work on. So we'll
bite off this elephant one spoon.
Yeah,
at a
one
time
spoonful at a time.
Yeah.
So I'm walking around the prison compound, and there was an old guy named Ron Wilson. Ron Wilson stole $57 million. There's articles that say he stole it's like $100 million. But really, the loss was $57 million, right? Because it's a Ponzi scheme. They'll jack up how much he's supposed to have made and got back. But it ends up being $57 million. So,
all right, guys, that is the end of part 1 of my 2-part sit-down with Matt Cox and Special Agent Jim DiOrio. If you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button and hit that notifications bell so that you find out when the next episode is coming out in the next couple days. And yeah, you're not going to want to miss this one. We talk all about how Matt and the Emperor got him out of prison way earlier than expected, and the entire backstory behind War Dogs, Ephraim DeVaroli, and everything that happened there before and after the movie came out. You are not going to want to miss it. So like this video also before you leave. Really appreciate everyone who watched. And by the way, here's the old studio in all its glory now. Just completely gone. Classic. R.I.P.